Chapter 1. The Multiverse Rescue System. Chong Wei, 20 years old, male. His parents passed away early, leaving behind a substantial amount of money for his education. He could have been a young man with a bright future, but fate had other plans, and he was diagnosed with cancer. Moreover, it had already reached an advanced stage. Upon receiving this news, Chong Wei felt as if he had been struck by lightning. Disheartened, he decisively chose to drop out of school and return to his ancestral home in the countryside. Preparing to live out his remaining days in peace, today was his first day back home. Seeing the dusty, dilapidated house, Chong Wei decided to clean it thoroughly. However, during the cleaning process, the pain from his cancer suddenly flared up, making it unbearable, and he eventually fainted from the agony. After he lost consciousness, a strange light slowly descended from the sky and entered between his eyebrows. At the same time, a mechanical voice echoed in his mind, "Ding. The Multiverse Rescue System has successfully bound to the host. Random ability generation in progress. Generation complete. Ability. Manifestation of a sci-fi warship." When Chong Wei woke up, it was already late at night. Looking at the unfinished cleaning, he could only smile wryly. There was nothing he could do but rest for the night and continue tomorrow. Just as he was preparing to settle in for the night, a mechanical voice suddenly rang in his mind. "Ding. Host awakening detected. Initiating beginner tutorial." What the heck? Who is speaking? Chong Wei was bewildered, initially thinking he was experiencing auditory hallucinations from being unconscious for too long. Yet, it seemed as though his thoughts were heard by the voice, which immediately responded. Conclusion denied. The host's mental state is normal, and no auditory hallucinations are present. The voice's reappearance made Chong Wei's eyes widen, and his expression grew serious. Having read web novels before, he quickly guessed a possibility. So he cautiously probed, "Are you the legendary system?" Soon, the mechanical voice responded again in his mind. Conclusion correct. This system is a 6th-generation system named the Multiverse Rescue System. Faced with such an incredible situation, Chong Wei still felt it was hard to believe. No. This can't be an illusion before I die, right? How can such a thing as a system exist in this world? Has my worldview collapsed? Unexpectedly, as soon as this thought crossed his mind, it was rebutted by the Multiverse Rescue System. Incorrect conclusion. The host's subjective judgment has led to cognitive bias and needs immediate correction. Correct logic existence is reasonable. This system will guide the host step by step in understanding its functions. Chong Wei felt a bit more awake, his eyes gradually brightening, and an overwhelming excitement and joy welled up inside him. I actually obtained the legendary system? This is real. Does this mean I don't have to die? Thinking of this, Chong Wei immediately followed the typical trope from web novels and began to inquire about the system's functions. "System, what abilities do you have?" The system quickly replied. "This system is the Multiverse Rescue System. Its main function is to issue tasks for the host to carry out rescue missions across the multiverse. Successful rescues will reward the host with corresponding currency, which can be used to purchase goods within the system or upgrade the host's abilities and system permissions, etc." Chong Wei understood it was just the common trope in system novels, completing tasks to continuously level up. As long as he had the system, he could eventually become a significant figure. But what he was most concerned about now was whether he could cure his cancer. Also, what exactly was his system ability? The system quickly provided him with an answer. The host's flaws and diseases can be eliminated through system goods or the host's abilities. The host's current ability is Manifestation of a Sci-fi Warship. Manifestation of a sci-fi warship? What use is this ability? Why not something like cultivating immortality? This way, not only could I live forever, but I could also harness immense power. Chong Wei suddenly felt disappointed with this system ability, but then he thought again, and his expression changed to one of surprise. "System, does the ability to manifest a sci-fi warship have any limitations?" The system replied, "As long as it conforms to warships from sci-fi works and the corresponding host permissions, it can be fully manifested. All units and facilities on it will obey the host's commands and dispatch. Note, NPCs are not puppets, so please interact with them properly. Currently, there is one manifestation slot available. This means the host can only summon one sci-fi warship at present." Chong Wei's breathing became rapid, his mind only registering conforms to warships from sci-fi works, while automatically overlooking corresponding host permissions. Filled with anticipation, he continued to ask, "So, can I manifest a warship right now?" "Yes. Would you like to manifest now?" The first manifestation is a system perk and can only recruit randomly. Once the recruitment is complete, it will be stored in the system's docking slot and needs to be summoned by the host. Once the manifestation is successful, the system tasks will commence. Please choose wisely. At this moment, Chang Wei no longer had any doubts about the system. At the same time, his heart was filled with hope and longing for the future. Chapter 2. Mission initiated, Starship Troopers. Ding. The recruitment of the battleship has been successfully materialized. The Hyperion is now docked in the system slot, and the host can check it at any time. The Hyperion, a capital-class battlecruiser from the real-time strategy game StarCraft, is commanded by Matt Horner. Originally belonging to the old Federation, it was seized by the Sons of Korhal and later taken by Rainer's Raiders, serving as their flagship for a long time and participating in several major battles that significantly influenced the history of the Copperless sector. Equipped with a powerful firepower system, a more robust fusion reactor, ultra-alloy armor over a meter thick, as well as spatial distortion jump engines and neutron fusion cannons, this battlecruiser resembles a fortress in space. The Hyperion is 100 meters long and 530 meters wide, primarily composed of 4 sections: the bridge, armory, bar, and laboratory. The bridge serves as the operational and command center of the Hyperion, where the commander can view star maps, confirm various mission objectives, discuss tactical strategies, and send and receive external communications. The armory is the maintenance and readiness area for the equipment and units aboard the Hyperion, where infantry, vehicles, aircraft, building units, and special forces can be stored, and the commander can spend resources to upgrade and maintain the troops. The bar is a place for entertainment and leisure on the Hyperion, where the commander can relax during their free time. It is also possible to recruit mercenaries here and sign contracts with them. In the game's storyline, the Hyperion is a battleship seized by rebels, often evading pursuit and hiding. To secure supplies, it frequently takes on mercenary work for income. Therefore, there is a resident mercenary company aboard, making it convenient to accept missions and, if necessary, hire them for combat. The laboratory is the technology area on the Hyperion, where various human-related technologies can be researched and upgraded. Is it really the Hyperion? As my first spaceship, it's quite impressive. Chang Wei is a fan of StarCraft, so he appreciates the design of the human battlecruiser. Moreover, it's the legendary Hyperion. After hearing the materialization of the Hyperion, Chang Wei took a deep breath, his eyes shining with excitement as he looked forward to the developments ahead. However, there were no celestial phenomena, no overwhelming powers. Chang Wei ultimately received only a calm, unremarkable notification from the system. The Hyperion has been successfully materialized. It is currently docked in the system slot. Would you like to summon it? Wait a moment. Chang Wei instinctively wanted to summon it. But then he thought about how the sudden appearance of such a colossal vessel above Earth would frighten the higher-ups of various countries to death. After some consideration, Chang Wei decided to ask the system. The system, can the location of the summoned battleship be changed at will? The system immediately replied in a cold and emotionless voice. Yes, centered around the host, the battleship can be deployed at any location within 1 light year. Since the host has already materialized the first battleship, rescue missions across various realms will begin to be issued. The host currently has level 1 authority and will have 24 hours of preparation time. Huh. Are we starting the mission so soon? Although Chang Wei had already understood the rules beforehand, he still felt a bit flustered at this moment. However, he quickly calmed down due to his good composure. At the same time, the system detected a distress signal, which was then converted into a mission format and issued to Chang Wei. Mission World, Starship Troopers. Mission Objective: rescue the hardcore team, where Rue Gu is located at the Whiskey Outpost. Mission Details: the Whiskey Outpost has sent out a distress signal, and Rue Gu's hardcore team was ordered to search and rescue. However, they ultimately discovered that it was actually a trap. By the time the hardcore team realized it, they were surrounded by a large number of arachnids and were under heavy attack. The hardcore team's situation was critical, and they had called for fleet rescue. Mission Rewards: for each soldier rescued, you will receive 10 mission points. Rescuing the main character will earn you 100 mission points. Completing the mission will reward you with 2,000 mission points. Note: killing enemy units will not yield any rewards. This system focuses on rescue missions, prioritizing the safety of those in distress and rejecting score farming. However, materials and research equipment dropped by enemy units can be collected. Mission Countdown: 23 hours, 59 minutes, 59 seconds. Upon seeing this mission, Chang Wei couldn't help but exclaim, "Wow, Starship Troopers?" Chapter 3. Mission Begins. Time is of the essence. Chang Wei knew he had to quickly familiarize himself with the Hyperion, or he would be at a loss once the mission started. Moreover, he had to rely on the nano-medical pod on the Hyperion for his cancer treatment. If he were to faint from pain during the rescue mission, it would be problematic. Thinking of this, Chang Wei immediately commanded the system to summon the Hyperion. System: deploy the Hyperion in space near Neptune. The system quickly replied with a message. The Hyperion has been deployed. Does the host wish to board now? Without hesitation, Chang Wei immediately responded. Board. As soon as he finished speaking, he saw his body begin to disintegrate, transforming into a stream of data, slowly disappearing from the original spot. This magical experience made him widen his eyes involuntarily, holding his breath in disbelief. The next moment, when Chang Wei opened his eyes again, he found himself on a sci-fi bridge of the battleship. The floor was entirely metallic, and the atmosphere was filled with a majestic and solemn vibe. Crew members were bustling about, each performing their duties, making the place seem busy and orderly. The walls of the bridge were covered with thick protective armor, reflecting a faint blue glow that provided an overwhelming sense of security. Various control buttons and displays were scattered across the empty walls, showing important data such as the warship's performance parameters, energy distribution, and navigation routes. In the center of the massive bridge stood a spacious and advanced command console, surrounded by high-tech control panels, monitors, and projectors. On both sides and directly in front of the bridge were panoramic windows, through which one could see the vast starry sky outside, as well as the nearby Neptune, radiating a blue glow, along with its 5 rings. It was clear that this was the bridge of the Huberian, the colossal battlecruiser, a command center that embodied technology, power, and determination. While Chang Wei was still curiously surveying his surroundings, a man in a high-ranking military uniform with a crew cut approached him and gave a standard military salute. "Welcome back, Commander. The Huberian is in optimal condition and ready for action." Chang Wei was instantly captivated by the voice and turned to look at the speaker, who was none other than Captain Matt Horner of the Huberian. Matt Horner was a passionate and idealistic individual with a strong sense of justice. He was young, smart, and full of ideals, and most importantly, he was not content with a dull life. When Reno rebelled against Monsk out of conscience, Matt became his first follower. After Reno's Rangers captured the flagship Huberian from the Battle of the Delarian Dock, it was only natural that he became the best candidate for the captain of the Huberian. In the following years, as the captain of the Huberian, he led a small fleet of Rangers and participated in numerous military operations with Reno, proving himself to be a highly trustworthy subordinate. When Chang Wei met his gaze, he couldn't help but swallow hard. After all, he was just a college student who had recently taken a leave of absence, while the other party was a battle-hardened captain of a space warship, whose personal aura completely overshadowed him. But then he remembered that he might have taken over the position of Reno and become the commander, coupled with the system's backing. So he mustered his courage and spoke up. "Matt, report our current position." As Chang Wei had anticipated, Matt showed no signs of surprise. Instead, he respectfully replied, "Commander, the Huberian is currently located near Neptune at the outer edge of the solar system. Our fuel can last for another 10 years without engaging in intense battles. However, we are severely lacking in maintenance parts for the troops and ships, and the cruise supplies will only last for another 30 days. Therefore, you need to formulate the next mission, preferably to find a starport for resupply." Chang Wei, being a fan of interstellar themes and novels, quickly got into the zone. "No need to worry about the mission. We will have work to do soon. First, take me to the medical bay. I have contracted a serious illness that requires immediate treatment." "Understood, Commander." When Chang Wei woke up from the nanomedical pod, all the cancer cells in his body had been eradicated. At the same time, he was injected with a cheap nutritional serum for rapid recovery. Therefore, Chang Wei now felt completely refreshed and particularly relaxed. Having been in the late stages of cancer, he had been prepared to wait for death back in his hometown. Unexpectedly, he encountered such an opportunity. Up to now, it still felt like a dream, not quite real. After expressing his feelings, he toured other areas of the ship, accompanied by Matt. Just like the settings in a game, he met Swan in the armory of the military factory, Stedman in the laboratory, and encountered powerful mercenaries in the bar, such as War Pig, Marine, Hellhound, Firebat, Hammer Security, Raider, Spartan Squad, Goliath Armed Robot, Breaker, Siege Tank, Hell Angel, Viking Fighter, Dusk Wing, Banshee, and Jackson's Revenge, Battlecruiser. Chang Wei was nearly drooling with excitement, but unfortunately, he had no funds to hire them. Otherwise, he would have surely signed a contract with them. Perhaps after completing this mission, he might have the funds? After that, Chang Wei tried on the powered armor of the Marines. Due to being unaccustomed to it and being overly excited on his first encounter, he fell several times. After some effort, he barely managed to adapt. However, this adaptation was just enough to walk normally. If he tried to run, he would still stumble. But Chang Wei was not discouraged. He believed that with more practice, he would get used to it. Later, he went to the shooting range to try the Gauss rifle, the standard weapon of the Marines, officially known as the C-14 electromagnetic spike gun. It is an automatic weapon capable of firing different types of ammunition, such as solid-fuel 8mm spike bullets, hollow-point rounds, depleted uranium rounds, also known as U-238 shells or thermobaric rounds, and incendiary rounds. Its framework allows for a degree of customization, permitting the attachment of bayonets, laser sights, or grenade launchers for high explosive payloads. This means it has incredible penetration power, minimal recoil, and impressive effectiveness against both air and ground targets. In the interstellar gaming community, Lei Ritian has even played the Marines to perfection, achieving the title of the strongest unit in the galaxy, capable of taking down even StarCraft carriers. Although it's a meme, after Chong Wei handled this firearm, he couldn't help but praise it. Time flew by, and soon it was time for the mission to begin. With Chong Wei's anxious gaze, the countdown to the mission reached 0. The next second, the ship, along with him, was completely teleported to another world by the system. At this moment, they were hovering above the Whiskey outpost, surrounded by a sea of bugs. Despite the hard-nosed troops fighting desperately to defend, their situation remained precarious. Chong Wei glanced down and couldn't help but speak seriously. Who is calling the fleet? Chapter 4: Who is calling the fleet? Starship Troopers is a sci-fi blockbuster directed by the master of science fiction, Paul Verhoeven, in 1997. The main plot revolves around a future where humanity's Federation enters the Star Age and engages in a racial war against the Arachnids. As the protagonist of the first film, Rico gives up his privileged life after graduating from high school and, encouraged by a girl named Carmen, enlists in the Mobile Infantry School. He transforms from a rookie soldier, experiencing life-and-death battles, shedding his naivety, and ultimately growing into a legendary general. Today, Rico is merely a warrant officer in the Mobile Infantry, and after receiving orders from the command, he follows his unit to the Whiskey outpost for reconnaissance and rescue. However, upon arrival, they discover that the Whiskey outpost has turned into a hell on Earth, filled with countless bodies and severed limbs chewed by the Arachnids. The entire outpost has no survivors except for a general hiding in a refrigerator. Finally, through the surviving general's account, they learn that this is a trap. The so-called distress signal is actually a call from the Arachnids controlling humans. Upon realizing this, the Mobile Infantry quickly ascends to a high point of the outpost for defense. Outside the outpost lies an endless sea of bugs, surrounding them completely. With no options left, they can only repair the outpost's communication system to call for help while fiercely resisting. As the battle intensifies, the jumpers appear. These are flying bugs, for meters long, weighing 485 kilograms, with an IQ of 30 and speeds of 200 to 300 kilometers per hour. They are significant air combat units of the Arachnids, and their sudden appearance causes considerable panic and casualties within the Mobile Infantry. Their speed is swift, and their most common tactic is to dive down rapidly from the sky to execute hit-and-run attacks, meaning they strike quickly and then disengage. Many soldiers fall victim to beheadings or are cut in half as a result. They swarm like flying locusts, instilling fear, as ammunition dwindles and the bugs seem endless. The commander of the Mobile Infantry, Ryusuke, is anxious and immediately calls for Rico, shouting at him, "Rico, go check if the communication is established." The roar of firearms and the screams of the bugs echo throughout the battlefield, heightening the tense atmosphere. Rico acknowledges the order without delay, grabs his rifle, and rushes towards the outpost. As he runs, he shouts into his headset, Is the communication connection established?" A voice responds, "Almost there, just wait one more minute." "We don't have a minute. Hurry." Meanwhile, the metal fence outside the outpost has been completely destroyed by the swarm, and they are frantically tearing at the last defense barrier. The situation for the Mobile Infantry is perilous. As Rue Gu burst into the barracks, he heard the female soldier Tiz frantically calling for help over the communicator. "Calling the fleet. Calling the fleet. This is the Hardbone Battalion. Requesting assistance. We are under attack by a massive swarm. Repeat, requesting assistance." Rue Gu rushed over, snatched the communicator, and shouted into it, "Fleet. We are under attack. Hurry and send someone to pick us up." Unfortunately, all he received in response was a static noise. Cursing under his breath, he tossed the communicator back to the female soldier and quickly grabbed his weapon, running back to report. The sound of gunfire was growing increasingly sparse, indicating that their ammunition was running low. When Rue Gu climbed back onto the watchtower's wall, Commander Ryusuke had just emptied a magazine and urgently asked Rue Gu, "What's the status? When will the fleet arrive?" Rue Gu, with a grim expression, replied, "Our communications have failed. The fleet hasn't received our signal. We have been abandoned, sir." Ryusuke was momentarily stunned, then punched Rue Gu in the face, shouting, "Don't undermine the morale. The fleet will be here soon. Now pick up your weapon and fight back." With that, he ignored Rue Gu, reloaded his magazine, and opened fire at the swarm below the wall. Rue Gu turned to look. The swarm was climbing over the bodies of their fallen comrades, inching closer to the watchtower. The sight of their grotesque mandibles and sharp appendages filled him with an inexplicable fear. "We're done for. Everyone might die here today." Just as despair began to spread among them, a piercing whistle suddenly rang out from the sky above. Following that, a massive shadow blotted out the sun, appearing above them like a fortress in the apocalypse. This astonishing scene left them momentarily stunned, staring blankly at the sky. What the hell is that? Soon, a short-range communication connected to their headsets. Who was calling the fleet? Chapter 5. Attack of the Huberian. Chong Wei stood on the Huberian, looking down at the endless sea of insects, his scalp tingling. Yet, at the same time, he felt a strong thrill and surge of excitement from the sight. He had seen the movie Starship Troopers and knew that the arachnid species was extremely vicious. They originated from the planet Klindithu and were similar to arachnids. With millions of years of evolutionary history, they possessed intelligence, lacked selfishness and fear, and had incredible reproductive capabilities. Their social structure operated like a hive, with a highly intelligent bug commanding the entire swarm in the combat zone. In the movie, the encounter between humans and the arachnids was sparked by human expansion, which initially led the Human Federation to underestimate the arachnids, viewing them merely as beasts. Until later, the Human Federation slowly realized that the arachnid insect race might possess intelligence comparable to that of humans. The current Whiskey Outpost is a trap intentionally set by the arachnids to understand humans. At the same time, it is also an experiment conducted by the highest command of the Human Federation to determine whether the arachnid has intelligence. In other words, the Hardbone troops were indeed sent to their deaths by the high-ranking officials of the Human Federation. For the command, the lives of soldiers are merely a string of cold numbers, especially for infantry mobile units like those led by Rega. Their duty is to probe step by step with their lives, sending one after another to their death, thereby allowing the command to confirm their suspicions and devise relevant strategies and tactics. Although in the film, a rescue transport ship eventually arrived at the Whiskey Outpost to save the main characters and help them escape, by that time, the Hardbone troops had already suffered heavy casualties. Not only had Commander Rega fallen in battle, but even the remaining soldiers were reduced to just over a dozen. Now, Chong Wei received their distress signal and came with the Huberian to change their fate and rescue them all. Thus, Chong Wei immediately issued orders to Captain Matt, initiate bombing on the insect swarm below to ensure the safety of the Whiskey Outpost. At the same time, dispatch Marines to assist those soldiers in defensive support. As soon as the order was given, Matt quickly took his position at the command center, standing tall and speaking powerfully. All personnel on the Huberian, enter battle status. All cannons, target the insect swarm below. We must not allow the outpost to be breached. The Rangers promptly donned their powered armor and weapons, heading to the outpost below to assist in the defense. Closed defense units, watch for aerial units of the swarm. Upon detection, shoot them all down. Orders were quickly dispatched, and the 10 secondary cannons and 130 auxiliary gun emplacements on the Huberian began a devastating bombardment on the surging insect swarm below. Boom, boom, boom. In an instant, explosions erupted, and artillery fire lit up the sky. Countless insect limbs and bodies were blown high into the air, with blood and body parts scattering everywhere. Such a shocking scene left those defending the outpost wall dumbfounded. From their perspective, a massive steel battleship loomed in the sky. It resembled a gigantic black iron fortress hovering above their heads, with a unique and formidable design, its hull covered in heavy armor, every detail showcasing strength and solidity. Terrifying energy cannons, missiles, and kinetic projectiles were launched in an orderly and highly intelligent manner from its hull. In an instant, they inflicted devastating damage on the swarm, drowning them in a sea of explosions and fire. Its weapons roared furiously, continuously raining down death and light upon the surface. Like a dance of fate, it swiftly reaped the lives of the insect swarm. The shockwaves from the explosions formed massive airwaves in the sky, completely burying the figures of the swarm. A massive cloud of flames and smoke spread out, creating a bizarre yet spectacular scene. The entire setting was filled with the intertwining of fire and light, with the sounds of explosions and rumbling echoing incessantly. Faced with an endless sea of insects, the battleship above displayed unparalleled power and majesty. Its appearance was akin to a spark of hope discovered by people in despair, igniting their blood and bringing endless courage and encouragement to the hard-nosed troops. But that was not all. Soon, they saw several landing pods being ejected from the massive ship overhead, like shooting stars falling to the ground. They landed with a series of loud crashes just outside the perimeter walls of the outpost. Then, a group of humans clad in powered armor, each standing 23 meters tall and wielding Gauss rifles thicker than their waists, burst forth from the landing pods. They quickly formed ranks and began to unleash a barrage of fire at the insects outside. Chapter 6. This is War. The warrior bug stands 3 meters tall, 5 meters long, weighs 550 kilograms, and has an IQ of 30, with a maximum running speed of 50 kilometers per hour. It is the most common soldier type within the arachnid species, and due to its rapid reproduction rate compared to other types, ground forces mainly face thousands of these creatures. The warrior bug has 3 pairs of legs, ensuring good mobility. It is not only fast and agile, but can also climb and dig in various terrains. Its forelegs are shorter than its hind legs, with a pair in the front. The 4 forelegs can act like deadly swords, capable of stabbing and slashing at enemies. Its iconic pincers have a powerful bite force exceeding 1,800 kilograms, capable of crushing rocks or metal, and cutting a person in half is a mere trifle. Their exoskeleton is incredibly hard, able to withstand temperatures over 500 degrees Celsius and resist high-density firepower, making it difficult for human bullets to penetrate. Standard human weapons require considerable effort to kill a warrior bug. Even if all its legs are broken, it can still maintain 40 combat capability. Therefore, the only effective way to kill a warrior bug is to hit and destroy its nerve center, located just below the eyes behind its mouthparts. The Marines were unaware of this information, and Chong Wei also forgot to inform them. So now he stretched his neck, worried about the outcome. However, it turned out that Chong Wei's concerns were unnecessary. The 50 capable brothers under Lei Ritian were indeed different, truly the strongest soldiers in the galaxy. Any formidable foe that came before them would be met with overwhelming force, with the powerful bombardment of the Huberian providing cover. This group of cavalry quickly formed their ranks and unleashed a torrent of fire upon the charging warrior bugs. A terrifying metal storm swept through, instantly showering the insects with blood and flesh, resulting in heavy casualties. Anything with more than 2 legs shouldn't expect to stand under their firepower net. As the swarm was being pushed back by this newly joined force, the Arachina swarm began to unleash its trump card. Suddenly, the ground shook violently, knocking over several unsteady cavalrymen. Then, a massive creature broke through the soil and debris beneath it, emerging from the ground. When Chong Wei saw this, he exclaimed in shock. "Oh no, a tank bug." The tank bug stands 7 meters tall, is 18 meters long, weighs 35 tons, has an intelligence of 35, and a maximum speed of 7 kilometers per hour. It is one of the strongest units in the Arachina swarm. Its appearance resembles that of a giant beetle, with 4 sturdy long legs and 8 auxiliary limbs to support its enormous body. Its armor is thick, making it difficult for standard weapons to penetrate. Coupled with its immense strength, it can easily topple or smash through barriers and shields set up by humans, hence its designation as a tank bug. Additionally, it can spray a corrosive flammable liquid that can easily dissolve human soldiers, making it a terrifying presence for infantry units. As expected, when it revealed its head, it unhesitatingly sprayed the corrosive flammable liquid at the cavalrymen who had fallen to the ground. Like being bathed in lava, those cavalrymen were instantly engulfed. Damn it, it's a tank bug. Soldiers, turn around and cover our allies. The personnel at the outpost immediately reacted with anger, quickly focusing their fire on the tank bug. In an instant, the sound of gunfire echoed, stirring their blood. However, their weapons were still outdated. When they hit the tank bug shell, all they heard were a series of clinking sounds, proving to be completely ineffective. At this time, both races were still in the early stages of war, with neither side understanding the other. Naturally, the human alliance had yet to develop specialized anti-bug weapons, still relying on the old Morita assault rifles. The Morita assault rifle is quite good in many aspects, but its flaw lies in its design, which is intended as an anti-personnel weapon rather than one specifically for fighting bugs. Therefore, human infantry lacked any advantage against the Arachina swarm in the early stages. Seeing the rescue team from an unknown location facing danger, the hardened troops couldn't help but feel anxious, eager to use up all their ammunition. However, the tank bug didn't remain arrogant for long, as it was soon blasted in the head by a beam weapon from above. Its orange blood and brain matter spilled out like a burst watermelon, and after staggering, it fell to the ground. Chong Wei watched the battle below and suddenly felt a bit intimidated, especially seeing those cavalrymen covered in the flammable liquid, which intensified his fear. Then, he blankly asked Matt, "Matt, did those Marines die?" Matt replied to Chong Wei's question with a serious expression. "Commander, sacrifice is inevitable. Even the Rangers with powerful exoskeleton armor can suffer fatal casualties if the enemy's firepower is strong enough. This is war." Chapter 7. Escape from death. These 5 words struck Chong Wei's heart like a heavy hammer, stirring an inexplicable emotion within him. Yes, war can take lives. This is reality, not a game. In a game, if a Marine falls, you can just spend $50 to create another one. But in reality, if someone falls, it means the loss of a living life, even if that life is just a clone or an NPC assigned by the system to Chong Wei. Their appearance is no different from that of ordinary people. If Chong Wei does not adjust his mindset and treats this place as a game or a movie world, he will never understand what he is truly here to do. Regaining his thoughts, Chong Wei said to Matt Horner, "Matt, continue to maintain fire coverage on the swarm, and quickly dispatch several medical transport aircraft to rescue the crowd below. We need to evacuate all of them and leave this place. Planet P is the territory of the Arachnid swarm, and the swarm is endless. Staying here will not cause any loss to the ship, but it will consume a lot of ammunition and energy reserves, making it not worth the effort in the end. Therefore, this operation must be like the rescue on Haven Star, defending against the swarm's attack while swiftly evacuating the survivors." Mac glanced at Chong Wei, nodded with a smile of approval. Wise decision, Commander. Soon, under the cover and support of aerial firepower, the Rangers on the ground gradually retreated to the base of the outpost walls. Seeing this, the commander of the Hardbone unit quickly opened the gate and called them in. Afterward, 3 medical transport aircraft descended from the ship. These aircraft were equipped with medical facilities and served dual purposes for aerial transport and battlefield medical care. They descended like flowers of hope, emitting ion exhaust from their tails, finding 3 clear spots in the outpost before gently landing. A ranger immediately shouted to the Hardbone unit, which was still firing frantically from the walls, "Hurry! The transport is here to pick us up. Evacuate quickly." Lieutenant Reiskar, the commander of the Hardbone unit, was not a rigid person. He couldn't bring himself to say the nonsense about fighting until the last moment. So he ordered everyone, all personnel, retreat into the outpost. Quickly board the aircraft. With that, amidst a flurry of gunfire, Reiskar jumped down from the wall first, followed closely by the other soldiers. With no defenders on the wall, the enemy fire immediately dissipated. Then, some scattered warrior bugs, lucky enough to survive, broke through the fire cover of the vessel and climbed over the towering pile of corpses, scrambling up the walls of the outpost, screeching and roaring as they charged in. Lieutenant Riascacco, seeing this, quickly turned around and shouted again, "Hold the line. Resist the bugs. What are those idiots in the machine gun tower doing? Get down here now." The Rangers and hardcore troops immediately formed a line, unleashing a torrent of fire at the charging warrior bugs. At the same time, this was also to buy time for the slower soldiers. To avoid damaging the structural integrity of the walls, the vessel did not conduct bombings near the outpost. But this allowed more scattered warrior bugs to rush into the outpost. The sound of gunfire echoed as many warrior bugs were riddled with bullets, falling from the barriers while howling in agony. However, more warrior bugs continuously surged to fill their ranks. Just as it seemed they could no longer hold on, Lieutenant Riascacco decisively shouted, "Get to the ship. Retreat. Hurry, hurry, hurry." As the last 2 soldiers from the machine gun tower joined the group, everyone began to alternate covering fire while retreating. But, just like the fate in movies, as all the soldiers were preparing to board, the ground shook violently and a massive sand pit suddenly opened up. Lieutenant Riascacco, caught off guard, stepped into thin air and instantly found his lower body trapped in the pit. Although he began to fire into the pit in resistance, it soon felt as if something had bitten him, causing his entire body to convulse in pain. Ray and his friend noticed Lieutenant Riascacco's predicament and, in shock, quickly jumped down to pull him out from both sides. However, after dragging him out, it was evident that his legs were gone, the gruesome severed ends sending chills down anyone's spine. One could only imagine the agony he had just endured. As the commander of the hardcore troops, Lieutenant Riascacco did not utter a single cry of pain, but instead grabbed Ray's shoulder and shouted desperately, "You know what to do." Ray gritted his teeth, suppressing his grief, and replied, "Yes, sir." He then stood up, aiming his gun at Lieutenant Riascacco. "What are you hesitating for? Do it now." Lieutenant Riascacco continued to roar at Ray, who was still hesitating. Just as Ray was about to end his suffering, an arm clad in powered armor reached over and grasped his gun. "This little injury can be healed easily. He won't die. Get him on the ship. We'll cover the rear," the voice commanded. Hearing this, Ray felt as if a great weight had been lifted off his shoulders, expressing his gratitude before he and his companion dragged the severely wounded Lieutenant Riascacco onto the ship. They had barely moved away when a tank bug suddenly erupted from beneath the sand pit. Having already noticed the situation, Chong Wei immediately shouted, "Take down that tank bug." Boom. A beam struck down, and like the previous one, this tank bug was also taken out with a headshot. Blood and brain matter were splattered everywhere, and the tall figure suddenly lost support, sliding into the sand pit. This made the originally tense crowd breathe a sigh of relief. However, soon the walls of the observation post began to show dense and loud noises as if struck by a massive object. The crowd glanced towards the source of the noise and realized it was time to evacuate. Once the last ranger boarded the ship, the medical transport's hatch closed and it slowly ascended. In the final moment before the hatch closed, everyone saw tank-like creatures crashing through the fence, leading countless warrior insects into the post. Since the evacuation was successful, the ship ceased its fire coverage to conserve energy and ammunition. As 3 medical transports flew towards the ship, everyone looked down in fear at the shocking scene of the observation post being completely overrun by the swarm. One could only imagine what would have happened to them if no one had come to their rescue, likely torn to shreds by countless insects, just like the remains lying on the ground when they first arrived at the whiskey outpost. Thinking of this, the soldiers of the Hardbone team began to curiously observe the armored figures beside them. This power armor looked incredibly impressive. Which unit of the Federation were they from? Their equipment was so advanced. They would have to properly thank their commander later. Chapter 8. You've kicked a steel plate. The doctor is here. On the medical transport. There were advanced medical devices from the Terran race. Unlike the fantasy visuals of healing light seen in games, its real function was to bring people into the cabin and treat them using the onboard medical equipment. At this moment, the severely injured Lieutenant Riascaco, after receiving an injection of painkillers, was wide-eyed as he watched a green nanomedical beam sweeping back and forth over his wound. Before long, both the worried onlookers and he himself were shocked to see the cross-section that had lost its lower half beginning to gradually regenerate, almost like 3D printing. Oh my god, this is simply a miracle. If the Federation had such advanced medical technology, why not use it on those soldiers missing limbs? Shoo, be cautious. Perhaps this medical equipment is very expensive and ordinary soldiers simply cannot afford it. Don't forget who rescued us. They might be a special unit hidden by the Federation. The Human Federation is a strictly hierarchical society, and lower-ranking soldiers have no power or qualification to question the decisions of their superiors. If discovered, they could face flogging at best, or be sentenced for treason and secretly executed at worst. Of course, it also depends on how strong your connections are. So, even though they had never seen this mysterious unit in power armor with such a massive ship, the Hardbone team members still refrained from questioning or probing further, for fear of being charged with military espionage and sent to a military court. At this moment, Changwei also began to feel puzzled. Because the hardcore troops had already been rescued from the Whiskey Outpost, why hasn't the system prompted that the mission is complete and issued the rewards? He immediately questioned the system in his mind. System, weren't all the people rescued? Why hasn't the mission been marked as complete? The system replied mechanically. The target is still in life-threatening danger. The system determines that the mission is not yet complete. What do you mean? Still in life-threatening danger? Just as Chang Wei was about to think further, Matt reminded him from the side. Commander, radar shows a cosmic fleet of 30 warships approaching us from space. At the same time, they have sent us a message. Should we respond? Chang Wei was taken aback at first, then immediately replied, answer. Soon. A middle-aged man dressed in the uniform of the Human Federation appeared on the large screen of the bridge of the Huberian. He spoke arrogantly to everyone. This is the Human Federation fleet. You have violated the laws of the Federation, constituting numerous offenses such as illegal possession of weapons, illegal operation of a spaceship, and illegal entry into a military control zone. I don't care who you are or what organization you belong to. Now surrender immediately. Shut down your engines, disarm, and turn over your warships and weapons, waiting for leniency from the Federation. Otherwise, you will be charged with treason and face our devastating strikes. Upon hearing this, Chang Wei felt a sudden surge of anger. It was as if he had done a good deed by helping an elderly person who had fallen down, only to be bitten back and accused of having knocked them down. He felt greatly insulted. What the hell was that bastard just saying? Asking him to shut down his warship, disarm, and turn everything over? Was he a citizen of theirs? Treason? Why did that sound so infuriating? They had deliberately not gone to rescue the hardcore troops, and now they wanted to pressure and bully him? Did they really think his warship was few and easy to bully? Chang Wei finally understood why the system had said that the hardcore troops were still in life-threatening danger. It turned out the threat was from the Human Federation, which was supposed to be on their side. Thinking about it, it made sense. In the later parts of the Starship Troopers series, it was revealed that the Human Federation was actually a brutal and ruthless dictatorship. The so-called citizens were merely seen as tax-paying tools and sources of soldiers by the higher-ups. The number of dissidents secretly executed each year was countless. If it weren't for the emergence of the arachnids, which diverted social conflicts, the Human Federation might have already begun to experience uprisings. Damn, you bunch of paper-thin warships. How many have you lost to the bugs, and you still want to come after the Huberian? Today, I am going to show you that you've kicked a steel plate. With that thought, Chang Wei immediately ordered Matt, designate them as enemy units, and use our warship advantage to destroy them. Matt saluted and instantly responded, understood, Commander. Chapter 9, the end of the battle began. The vessel swiftly ascended to a low orbit around the planet. The fleet of the Human Federation noticed that the ship was gaining a favorable position and immediately guessed its intentions, launching a preemptive attack. A barrage of orange-yellow energy beams shot forth. At this point, it seemed impossible to fully capture the enemy's warship. Since they refused to surrender, the decision was made to destroy it. Then, they would drag the wreckage back for a thorough analysis of its technology. The Human Federation's fleet consisted entirely of a specific class of starship, which is a large mainstay warship designed for multiple functions including troop transport, air superiority, firepower suppression, and intelligence analysis. This was the same type that had previously obliterated numerous fragile warships with devastating plasma weaponry in earlier conflicts. The ship was equipped with 4 main thrusters, and its primary weapon was a directed energy weapon. From both defensive and offensive perspectives, the colossal battleships of the opposing faction could easily outmatch the Human Federation's fleet. Even if they had numerical superiority, it wouldn't matter, with a significant technological advantage. the ship could engage without fear of retaliation. In an instant, both sides began to exchange fire passionately. A multitude of projectiles illuminated the vastness of space, creating a dazzling display. The ship stood tall among the stars, its massive body shimmering with a cold metallic glow, seemingly proclaiming its strength and durability at every moment. Despite the intense energy from the Human Federation's fleet, the crew inside felt only slight vibrations, and the powerful armor showed no signs of damage, rendering those directed energy weapons almost absurdly ineffective. Although the 30 main warships of the Human Federation continued to unleash brilliant flashes, the experienced captain had already assessed the disparity in combat effectiveness. Thus, the ship began to counterattack. After a brief charge, its main cannon prepared to unleash a devastating barrage against the enemy fleet. With a thunderous roar, the main gun at the front of the ship fired a colossal energy beam, hurtling toward the Human Federation's fleet. In that moment, the entire expanse of space seemed to tremble. The flagship of the opposing fleet was mercilessly obliterated, and the violent explosion engulfed several nearby warships. Soon, they were all destroyed alongside the flagship. Such a terrifying strike instilled immense shock and fear within the remaining vessels of the Human Federation, and with the flagship's demise, their command structure fell into chaos, leading to disorganized retaliatory actions. Dozens of energy beams surged forth, striking the ship repeatedly, yet they failed to inflict any significant damage. Meanwhile, all weapons aboard the ship fired in unison, targeting the enemy with a coordinated barrage. In that moment, it seemed as if the entire space was filled with the blazing light of weapons. Against 30 enemies, not only did they not fall behind, but they also created an extraordinary intensity reminiscent of 1,000 armies clashing. The space was filled with explosive fire and shockwaves of energy. The 10 secondary cannons and 130 auxiliary turrets of the ship roared continuously, destroying one enemy warship after another. The flashes of explosions flickered incessantly, and the burning wreckage bore witness to the brutality and beauty of the battle. As the fight reached its climax, Captain Matt of the ship analyzed that the enemy's weapons could not inflict substantial damage. He decided to adopt a risky strategy. He ordered the entire ship to launch a surprise attack, leveraging the technological advantage to break through the enemy's scattered defenses. This unexpected move caught the remnants of the Human Federation fleet completely off guard. The ship, unmatched in bravery, charged into the enemy fleet, and all weapons began to fire freely. The close distance significantly increased the hit accuracy and reduced damage attenuation, quickly blowing up the main warships of the Human Federation one by one. The enemy was thrown into chaos, desperately attempting to counterattack. But the maneuverability and defense of the ship left them with no options. Ultimately, after a concentrated fire from the 10 secondary cannons, the last enemy warship was pierced and erupted in a violent chain explosion. Watching the surroundings transform into burning wrecks, Chong Wei closed his eyes and shook his head with a sigh. He felt a sense of regret. Not for the high-ranking officers of the Human Federation who had just boasted, but for the crew members who lost their lives due to their foolishness and arrogance. However, there was still a sense of victory. After a brief adjustment of his mindset, a smile appeared on Chong Wei's face. Meanwhile, a notification sound from the system in his mind indicated that the mission was completed. After calculating the mission reward points, it presented two options. Option 1. Escort the members of the Hardbones unit to a safe outpost near Planet P. Option 2. Inform the members of the Hardbones unit of the truth and recruit them as subordinates. Chong Wei stared blankly at the two options, momentarily unsure of how to choose. According to normal procedures, after rescuing them, they should be sent to a safe place, as they belong to this world, which had their home. However, the current situation was that after rescuing them from the Whiskey Outpost, they had faced threats from the Human Federation fleet and subsequently annihilated them. This posed a dilemma. If he chose the first option to send them back, they would likely be interrogated one by the Human Federation's command, with a high probability of being branded as traitors and executed. Even if they are not executed, the best outcome is to continue serving as cannon fodder, sent to the front lines as test subjects for the Supreme Command. Then, they might end up like today, uncertain of when they would meet their demise in the sea of insects. However, if they choose the second option, how can they explain it to them? Don't get me wrong, Chong Wei is not as pretentious as protagonists in other novels, hesitant to reveal his identity. In fact, even if he tells them he and the Hubrian came from another world, what difference would it make? The key lies in their attitude and reaction. After truthfully informing them of the reality, how would they perceive him and his companions? As saviors? Or as enemies of the Human Federation? If it's the latter, wouldn't he recruiting them be inviting trouble? They might just turn around and attack after being equipped. If it's the former, would they really be willing to give up everything in this world to follow him? It's important to note that being captured and convicted is just one possibility. They are bound to hold on to hope. The true darkness of the Human Federation is something many cannot access. coupled with the long-term brainwashing by the propaganda department. This group of soldiers generally holds a positive view of the Human Federation. Recruiting them would be extremely difficult. So how to choose? Just as Chong Wei was deep in thought, he heard Mattis report. Sir, although the battle has ended, we might be able to salvage some useful supplies from the wreckage of those ships. You see, the Huberian has expended a significant amount of ammunition and energy during the fight. While it may seem disrespectful to the deceased, it could help us with our urgent needs. Also, the crew's supplies are down to only 30 days. Perhaps we can gather enough water and biomass from those wrecks. Additionally, there was a message from the cabin stating that Lieutenant Riascacco of the Hardbones Brigade wanted to personally thank you for your rescue and inquire whether the recent tremors of the ship were due to the battle. Upon hearing this, Chong Wei couldn't help but sigh. What was meant to come would eventually arrive. He then glanced at Matt and said, Matt, you handle the supply gathering. I'll meet with Lieutenant Riascacco. Understood, sir. Afterward, Chong Wei, accompanied by a few trusted brothers, arrived at the bar. Although the bar was not a formal meeting place, it sufficiently reflected Chong Wei's easygoing nature. Upon arrival, he saw Riascacco and his buddy Private Levi gathered around an old arcade game, playing Galaga. Just as the buttons and joystick were being furiously pressed, a voice echoed through the hall announcing the arrival of the commander. Instantly, the two were startled, quickly turning to stand at attention, aligning themselves with their comrades. At this moment, they still believed that Chong Wei and his team were a secret operations unit of the Human Federation. As the commander of such a unit, his rank and connections must be intimidating. One word from him could potentially send everyone present into the sea of insects. Chong Wei glanced over and immediately spotted Lieutenant Riascacco standing at the bar. This bald high school teacher was the person Chong Wei found most admirable throughout the entire film. His admiration stemmed mainly from the tough guy charisma he exuded and his decisiveness in the face of any situation. He could definitely be regarded as an excellent frontline commander, and if he could be successfully recruited, it would greatly enhance the ground command capabilities of Chong Wei's forces. Chong Wei took a deep breath and walked over confidently. Embodying the role as he declared, I am the supreme commander of this unit, Major General Chong Wei. I've heard you wish to see me? Lieutenant Riascacco looked at the youthful face before him, surprised by the other's youthfulness. However, the armed guards behind him were unmistakably serious. Standing straight, he respectfully performed a standard military salute to Chong Wei. Lieutenant Riascacco of the Hardbone troops salutes the general. On behalf of all the soldiers of the Hardbone troops, I thank you for your selfless rescue. Chong Wei looked at Lieutenant Riascacco, not returning the salute, but signaling for him to relax. Lieutenant Riascacco, there's no need to be so formal. You may have misunderstood. Our unit does not belong to the Human Federation. We come from another universe. Chapter 11. Preparation for recruitment. We come from another universe. Lieutenant Riascacco was taken aback, and the rest of the Hardbone troops were equally stunned. However, Riascacco quickly regained his composure and said with a serious expression, General, you're quite humorous. Yet, Chong Wei looked at him earnestly, his gaze sharp and devoid of any playful tone. Riascacco's expression changed, realizing that Chong Wei might not be joking. Upon reflecting on his earlier observations, he noted that the personnel and uniforms aboard the Huberian were markedly different from what he recognized as the Human Federation military. If they were a special unit of the Federation, they should have been exceptional in terms of supplies and personnel quality. However, Riascacco had keenly observed that these people seemed to possess a quality reminiscent of mercenaries, appearing somewhat disorganized. Thus, Lieutenant Riascacco lowered his head and, with a pair of resolute eyes, carefully asked, General, is what you say true? Chong Wei calmly nodded. Yes, I am not joking. Lieutenant Riascacco quickly pressed on. Since you do not belong to the Human Federation, why did you come to rescue us? Or rather, what is your purpose? As soon as the words left his mouth, the atmosphere in the room grew tense. Chong Wei's heart raced, but he maintained his composure, suppressing his inner fear and unease, and replied calmly, Purpose? There is no particular purpose. We just happened to receive your distress signal and came to rescue you from the encirclement of the arachnid swarm. Lieutenant Riascacco squinted his eyes, seemingly trying to discern the truth behind Chong Wei's words from his expression. After a moment of silence, noticing no signs of deception, and considering that his hardcore troops were on the enemy's ship, along with the fact that they owed their lives to the other party, he softened his tone and asked, General, may I ask how you intend to deal with us? Chong Wei inwardly breathed a sigh of relief and promptly answered his question. You have two options. First, we can send you back to the nearest safe outpost. Second, you can join us and become a part of the Marine Corps or Rangers. However, before you make a choice, I must inform you of something important. After rescuing you, a fleet from the Federation unreasonably attempted to disarm and attack us. We had no choice but to retaliate, ultimately annihilating that fleet. And that fleet was the one you had been calling for help from, but received no response. This means you were actually sold out by the Federation's command. They deliberately sent you to your deaths to test whether the arachnids truly possess intelligence and strategy. To be honest, Lieutenant Riscacco had already suspected this outcome when he learned that no one answered the signal from the report. However, hearing more accurate information from Chong Wei made it hard for him to accept at that moment. But as a former teacher with a decent intellect, he quickly realized what fate awaited the hardcore troops if they were safely returned by the ship. Knowing the nature of the high-ranking officials in the Federation, they would undoubtedly label all of them as traitors and even shift the blame for losing a fleet onto them. By then, no matter how they tried to explain, they would face certain death. In other words, whether they died in battle or returned to be executed, their fate was already sealed. A cold sweat trickled down Lieutenant Riscacco's forehead. It seemed that joining Chong Wei's forces might be their only way out. But would his soldiers agree? After all, their families were back in the Federation. If they were branded as traitors, their families would also be implicated, right? So, was dying on the battlefield the perfect ending for them? Lieutenant Riscacco looked at Chong Wei, apologized, and then spoke. General, I may not have the authority to decide this matter. Please allow me to discuss it with my subordinates. We will give you a response afterward, if that is all right with you. Chong Wei noticed his inner hesitation and spoke frankly. That's fine. If you choose to join us, we will take you away from this universe and inform the Federation that you have been eliminated by us and that you all fought bravely until the last moment. Lieutenant Riscacco's gaze trembled for a moment, but he quickly composed himself and nodded in gratitude to Chong Wei. Thank you for your understanding, General. We will provide you with a response soon. Chapter 12. Purchasing battleship slots after a series of intense discussions and psychological struggles. The hardcore team finally reached a consensus to join Chong Wei's forces. Although many were still a bit reluctant, it was better than returning to the Human Federation, being forcibly labeled as traitors and ultimately dying unjustly. Upon hearing this news, Chong Wei was overjoyed and immediately organized a simple welcome ceremony for them. The drinks and beverages in the bar were free for them for a day. In the end, amidst sorrow and loud cries, they all got completely drunk. It was their good brothers who carried them back to the temporary dormitory. Chong Wei patted Lieutenant Ruisi Jieka on the shoulder and comforted him, saying, "Don't think too much. Life should be lived to the fullest. By joining us, you'll get to experience many different sights in other universes." Lieutenant Ruisi Jieka, inebriated, thanked him and was then helped away by his brothers. As for their outdated weapons and equipment, they could be discarded as trash. Chong Wei had already contacted Swan at the armory, instructing him to prepare power armor and Gauss rifles for the hardcore team. They could start training related to these the next day, and it was estimated that they would be combat ready in about a week. By then, with a paycheck of 50, everyone would be good brothers, wielding Gauss rifles together. On the other side, after a frantic scavenging effort, the Huberian had collected a large amount of supplies from the wreckage of those battleships. The reserves of water and biomass were the most abundant, enough to sustain the Huberian for over 500 days. Then there were recyclable metals, energy storage units, and a small amount of chemical catalysts. Listening to Matt's continuous reports, Chong Wei felt as poor as he had during his days in the past, living frugally and picking up scraps to survive. He wondered if his fleet would always be like this in the future. Returning to his thoughts, he checked the system task options, which had been completed, and the countdown was about to end. Only then did Chong Wei relax. To be honest, the surreal experience of the first system task had significantly shaken his worldview. Especially those magnificent future battles kept his nerves on edge. If there were no other matters, upon returning, he would first take a good sleep and then ride his electric bike to town for a meal. This was both a way to relax and to celebrate his recovery from cancer while contemplating his future life plans. When the system's countdown ended, Chong Wei saw his body transform into a stream of white light along with the Huberian. In an instant, he disappeared from this universe. When he opened his eyes again, he was back in his old home S-yard. At that moment, Chong Wei suddenly felt a wave of fear. He was afraid that everything that had happened before was merely a figment of his imagination. There has never been a system, no ship, and no rescue operations like in the stories. His own cancer still exists. So, after taking a deep breath, he began to tentatively inquire about the system in his mind. "System, are you there?" Soon, the system responded, "Yes." Hearing this reply, he instantly felt relieved. This meant that everything was not just his hallucination. He was really about to take off. Then, he asked the system again, "What about the ship and the crew?" The system replied mechanically, "The ship is docked in the system slot, and the crew will not feel any abnormalities. They will continue their daily training and supply consumption. The host can open the control panel to upgrade, modify, train, and arrange tasks for the ship and its crew." As it spoke, a control panel appeared in front of him, neatly displaying the ship's various configuration attributes and crew composition. After the system's detailed explanation, he realized he could handle many tasks on the control panel. For example, he could consume task points to repair the ship, replenish ammunition and energy, and manage living supplies. He could also order specific characters to undertake special projects. But these commands would also consume task points. Looking at his task points, he thought better of it. He didn't have many points and couldn't afford to waste them. Now, the priority was to enhance his fleet strength. Otherwise, if he failed the next rescue mission and the ship got destroyed, it would be disastrous. There were several ways to enhance the fleet's strength. 1. Sign contracts with powerful mercenaries. 2. Order upgrades for all units' armor and firepower. 3. Command research into more advanced and useful technology. 4. Recruit hero units. 5. Increase the ship slots to randomly or specifically recruit ships. He leaned towards the option of increasing the ship slots. After all, what kind of fleet was just one ship? Only with more ships would he have real power. However, purchasing ship slots was really expensive. The first one cost 2,000 task points, the second 4,000, the third 6,000, and so on. Although recruiting ships was free, it was divided into random and specific recruitment. Random recruitment was free, but after the first specific recruitment, it would start charging, getting more expensive each time, following the same incremental mechanism as buying ship slots. It felt like playing a pay-to-win mobile game. The more you invested, the stronger your fleet would become. This system was simply unreasonable. Was it cultivating the host or training an ultimate worker? Of course, these were just complaints. In fact, he felt quite content. Having the system was the greatest luck of his life. After hesitating for a moment, he finally gritted his teeth and unlocked the second ship slot. In an instant, the 2,000 task points were immediately spent. Chapter 13, The Ark of Cybertron. Watching the 2,000 task points vanish right before him, Chang Wei felt a strange pain in his heart. But soon, another problem arose. Recruiting a warship required 500 task points. After purchasing a warship slot, he only had 400 task points left, which was simply insufficient. The completion of the rescue mission rewarded him with 2,000 task points. Saving 30 soldiers earned him 300 task points, and rescuing the protagonist, Rigo, granted him 100 task points, totaling 2,400 task points. Chang Wei looked at the reward record from the last mission and felt somewhat helpless. At the same time, he comforted himself. Things will get better in the future. However, he couldn't leave a warship slot empty, waiting for the next mission to earn enough rewards to recruit, right? That would be a waste. Chang Wei wasn't that foolish. So, he thought, let us just recruit randomly. It's not guaranteed to get a worthless warship. Even if he ended up with one of those fragile ships from the Galactic Federation, he would accept it. After all, having something is better than having nothing. It could still serve to bolster his presence, and if it came to a fight, he could always hide behind the Hubrian for support. Chang Wei was someone who had a relaxed perspective on things. He didn't pursue absolute perfection or exorbitant profits. He only sought to get by and ensure he wouldn't incur losses. He understood early on that truly intelligent people only earn limited profits, and that excessive profits do not last long. Those who chase perfection often find it unattainable. After thinking this through, Chang Wei felt relieved. He didn't rush to open the mystery box, but chose to get a good night's sleep first. On the Hubrian, he hadn't rested much due to his change in identity and the romantic thrill of encountering space warships, which only a man could understand, keeping him in a state of excitement. Now back at his old home, he relaxed and immediately felt a wave of heavy drowsiness wash over him. Forget it. I'll deal with everything after I wake up. He slept soundly for over 10 hours and only yawned awake in the afternoon the next day. Since learning of his cancer diagnosis, he hadn't slept so well, feeling as if his whole being had been revitalized, particularly satisfied. Checking the time on his phone. It was already past 4 in the afternoon, and he estimated that riding his electric scooter into town would allow him to have dinner. Let us go. Time to celebrate at a restaurant. So, Chang Wei rode his little electric scooter, humming a tune, and after more than half an hour, he finally arrived in town. He then found a Lanzhou noodle restaurant and ordered a large plate of chicken, a dish of scrambled eggs with tomatoes, a serving of stir-fried potatoes with beef, and a bowl of white rice. Wow, it was simply satisfying. For someone like him, who had lost both parents and dropped out of school due to cancer, he had never experienced any delicacies or extravagant indulgences. In his eyes, as long as he could ensure the most basic food and entertainment, he would be very satisfied. This was something he had experienced since childhood. The happiness and simple wishes of ordinary people were just like those who were in despair, yearning to be rescued. That was their wish. Chang Wei chewed on the rice called happiness, his thoughts flying everywhere. From now on, I will definitely become an excellent fleet commander and use the power given to me by the system to change the fates of countless people, allowing those in despair to regain happiness. After finishing dinner, Chang Wei returned to his residence and continued with his unfinished tasks. System, begin random recruitment of warships. Upon receiving the command, the system immediately displayed a panel, and in the center of the interface appeared the black outline of a warship, beginning to scroll randomly. From Chang Wei's perspective, the dark outline of the warship kept changing, rolling like a lottery for half a moment before finally stopping. Then, the black outline gradually brightened. revealing the image, name, and data of the warship. Chong Wei's eyes widened in surprise. The warship he had recruited was the Ark of Cybertron. Originating from the animated series Transformers, it belonged to the Autobot faction and was the flagship of the Autobot leader, Optimus Prime. The Ark was massive, with enough internal space, equipment, and facilities to accommodate nearly 300 Cybertronians. In addition to living and entertainment areas, the Ark was equipped with advanced engineering, repair, and medical bays, as well as some onboard weaponry. It was one of the first Cybertronian ships to possess space-jump teleportation technology, capable of using spatial wormholes for short-distance physical transport. Its hangar could accommodate multiple spacecraft. Additionally, the Ark carried Image 1 and a leadership module. Image 1 was a supercomputer with unparalleled logical reasoning and analytical capabilities. It also served as a communication platform with a coverage radius of up to 3,000 light-years. Its most powerful ability was its scanning technology, which could analyze the local environment and execute reformatting programs on Transformers, altering their transformation modes to adapt to the local conditions. In the animated series, it was this system that awakened the two factions sleeping on Earth to continue their war. The leadership module, on the other hand, was a core treasure of Cybertron, a symbol of great power and an object coveted by all conflicting parties. Besides being a symbol of leadership, the leadership module was also the most effective source of life energy, the wellspring of Transformers' existence. According to Chong Wei's understanding of Transformers, the leadership module was akin to an energy matrix. According to the lore of Transformers, its energy was limitless, capable of activating new Cybertronian life forms or enhancing existing ones, serving as a legacy among leaders. In the historical legends of Cybertron, it was one of the 3 sacred artifacts inherited from the Primus and various Cybertronian leaders, the only weapon capable of opposing the cosmic evil deity. In short, it was incredibly powerful. The specific settings are quite lengthy, and it would take Chong Wei some time to remember them all. He might even need to look them up online. In short, the Ark of Cybertron is an antique ship with limited firepower and defense capabilities. However, the equipment it carries, such as the Imaging 1 and the Leadership module, is indeed valuable. Especially the Leadership module. If it truly functions as originally designed, then with its unlimited energy, Chong Wei could declare an immediate launch. Just thinking about this made him eager to summon it and board the ship for a closer look. At that moment of excitement, the system also announced a rescue mission alert. Ding! A distress signal has been detected. The message is as follows: soon. The cold mechanical voice of the system transformed into that of a mature man with a magnetic voice. This is the Border Resistance. I am Major Anderson. The IMC Colonial Corporation is invading our homeland, and we must rise up against them. However, our long-term disadvantage in this war has led to heavy losses in our fleet and iron horses. Our situation is dire. We ask all those who can hear this distress signal to lend us a helping hand. This is a fight for freedom, a fight for justice. What? Chong Wei seemed to have heard something significant. Chapter 14, Titanfall Mission Generation in Progress. Rescue Mission Generation in Progress. Mission World. Titanfall 2 Mission Objective: rescue the Border Resistance and prevent the IMC from annihilating them. Capture or destroy the Arkansas mission. Details: the Border Resistance detected a strange explosion at the IMC testing facility. Major Anderson and the rest of the troops went to investigate but were ambushed by the IMC, causing their forces to scatter. Major Anderson can only proceed alone to continue the investigation. However, he is unaware that the explosion was caused by the IMC acquiring a type of space-time folding weapon known as the Arkansas. Although the Ark is still in the experimental stage, it already has the capability to destroy a planet. The IMC's next experimental attack target is the home planet of the Border Resistance, Harmony Star. If Harmony Star is destroyed by the IMC, the Border Resistance will face annihilation. Currently, Major Anderson is isolated and the situation of the Border Resistance is precarious. Mission Rewards: rescue Major Anderson. Reward 1,000 mission points. Rescue the protagonist Jack Cooper. Reward 1,000 mission points. Rescue BT-7274. Reward 5,000 mission points. Each Border Resistance warship rescued grants 100 mission points. Completing the mission grants an additional 3,000 mission points. Mission countdown: 23 hours, 59 minutes, 59 seconds. Upon seeing this mission alert, Chong Wei's expression changed, and he exclaimed in surprise, "Wow, it really is Titanfall 2. Titanfall 2 is a first-person shooter game developed by Respawn Entertainment. The game features a variety of sci-fi weapons and equipment, such as rocket packs for brief flight and jumping, as well as elements like piloting mechs in combat. Its story is primarily set in a futuristic, fictional world. Chronicles tell that about 120 years ago, humanity began its long journey of cosmic exploration with the emerging Titan technology, mecha technology, and interstellar jump technology. Among them, A group of ambitious explorers sought to uncover the edge of the universe, and after an endless journey, they finally reached a star system untouched by human civilization, which they named the Border. Due to the great distance from human civilization, this star system became a gray area that even the government would not intervene in for a long time. Around 100 years ago, more and more humans migrated to the Border. Some were farmers unable to afford the high land prices of their home planet. Some were adventurers exploring the far reaches of the universe, and others were simply antisocial individuals wanting to distance themselves from human society. Of course, many were desperate criminals. Together, they formed a disorganized group in this anarchic gray zone and miraculously coexisted peacefully. They called themselves the residents of the Border, the first colonizers of this mysterious star system, as well as its peacekeepers. About 20 years ago, the IMC Colonization Company discovered the value of this lawless land. They quickly dispatched mining ships and began extensive exploitation. In the face of protests from farmers and others, the IMC responded with force, expelling or massacring the protesters. This led to the residents of the Border uniting and forming a resistance to fight against the IMC's invasion. In other words, the plot of Titanfall 2 unfolds after 20 years of war between the Border resistance and the IMC. The resistance is essentially a disorganized group, many of whom are former farmers, and it is indeed not easy to withstand the onslaught of the professional mercenaries of the IMC for so many years. The industrial output of their home planet, Haminis, played a crucial role, providing the resistance with a large amount of weaponry, supplies, and personnel. If one of the IMC's powerful weapons were to destroy that, the resistance could be finished in an instant. With a clear plan forming in his mind, Chang Wei quickly drafted a rough combat strategy. He intended to leverage his naval superiority to assist the Border resistance in controlling air supremacy over the entire combat zone. This would also cut off the enemy's ability to deploy Titans on the ground. When the time came, he would coordinate with ground troops, siege tanks, and Goliath-armed robots to sweep away the enemy's ground forces and facilities and locate their hidden strongholds. It felt somewhat like the story of Zhao Kuo's paper tactics. But one couldn't expect too much from Chang Wei. After all, he was just a young man who had to drop out of university due to illness before completing his studies. With more experience over time, he would gradually grow. Seeing that there was still some time before the mission began, Chang Wei decided to summon the Cybertron Arc to take a look, especially to check whether the leadership module was the original version or a lower spec variant. If it was the original, he would take off immediately, because from that moment on, he would possess nearly unlimited energy. By the way, I still have 400 task points in hand, which shouldn't go to waste. How about buying a Nova to enjoy the view? Good idea. As Chang Wei summoned the Arc of Cybertron, he immediately turned around and opened the system's control panel, navigating to the armory and spending all 400 task points on Swan. The order was, boost both attack and defense, and with the remainder, equip the Goliath-armed robot with rocket boosters. Swan, with a cigarette in his mouth, was quite pleased with Chang Wei's decision and smiled at him. Hey, kid. I just got my hands on the blueprints for the Transformers, so you can start producing them now. Huh. Chang Wei was taken aback, sensing something ominous. Surely, there couldn't be a single Transformer crew member aboard the Ark of Cybertron, right? Would it all rely on that supercomputer, Project One? The thought of the bizarre nature of the command module made Chang Wei shudder. Oh no, there really is a possibility of that. Chapter 15. The story begins. Chang Wei's premonition quickly came true. When he boarded the Ark of Cybertron, he was stunned by the empty scene before him. It was truly a hollow warship, with all ship control managed by that supercomputer. Not a single transformer in sight. However, he soon regained his composure and started searching. Finally, he found the coveted command module in the core storage unit of the ship. It was a metallic spherical package that could expand and contract freely, emanating a soft blue glow that was dazzling. Chang Wei held it in his hand and admired it for a moment before asking the system, "Is this command module the original version or a stripped-down version?" The system replied promptly, "It is a stripped-down version. It does not possess the attribute of unlimited energy. However, compared to ordinary energy consumption, it can achieve a similar effect to unlimited energy." Chang Wei had already guessed this outcome and was not surprised. The term unlimited energy carries too much significance. Not even the entire universe could claim the existence of true unlimited energy. It was merely a conjecture found in fictional works. Considering that the warship was randomly generated, Chang Wei felt reluctant to demand too much from the system. After all, he understood the principle of getting what you pay for. He carefully tucked the command module into his pocket and continued exploring the Arkansas, finding it uninteresting. He left the ship and returned to the Huberian. In simple terms, the Ark of Cybertron was too rudimentary. Although the internal space was large, that was because it was designed based on the height and volume of Transformers. Thus, it felt very spacious for ordinary people. But what good is spaciousness? What Chang Wei needed was tangible combat power. Unfortunately, the Ark of Cybertron lacked that. so he could only define it as a supply transport ship. In normal times, it would assist the Hubarian by transporting parts, fuel, and supplies. Once combat erupted, it would stay behind the Hubarian, providing support and acting as a peripheral observer. When encountering a favorable situation, one can certainly take the opportunity to showcase strength against opponents. However, to consider it a flagship is clearly incomparable to the other vessel. Upon arriving at the other vessel, Chang Wei met with the members of the hardcore unit once again. At that moment, they were practicing with the newly acquired power armor and Gauss rifles in the armory. Upon seeing Chang Wei, they quickly put down their tasks, stood at attention, and saluted him, calling out, "Good day, General." Chang Wei shook hands with each of them, expressing his care and greetings, as this would help them integrate into his unit more quickly. They expressed their gratitude in return. But what is the duty of a soldier? It is to fight, to achieve victory. Therefore, Chang Wei's arrival was certainly significant. The sharp-minded Lieutenant Ryuskako boldly inquired, "General, is a combat mission imminent?" Chang Wei nodded at them, not hiding anything. Yes, a group of mercenaries is invading a star system called the Border. The farmers there have formed a resistance to combat the invasion, but they are weak and in a dire situation, calling for our support. Lieutenant Ryuskako's expression became serious, and he pressed his Gauss rifle tightly against his chest, continuing to ask, "So, General, what is our mission?" Chang Wei pretended to check the time, and then said seriously, "There are 16 hours until the mission begins. I need you to rest after completing your training so that you will have the energy to carry out our combat task. You will be conducting a landing operation on a planet alongside mechanized army forces." Chang Wei began to settle into his role, speaking with more confidence than during their first meeting. He tried to emulate the generals from TV shows, speaking in a concise, clear, and resolute manner. After addressing the hardcore unit, Chang Wei sought out Swan, hoping he could produce a transformer for this operational experiment. "That is certainly doable," Swan replied, "but time is tight. I can only produce one transformer at most. We will also need to use the command module to activate its power source. Although one unit was limited, it was better than nothing, especially for combat testing." Chang Wei agreed with Swan's assessment and added his own requirements. "All right, please equip it with technology from the Tyrant species. And with its transforming capability, it should yield good results." Swan, with a cigarette in his mouth, nodded at Chang Wei. "You've got me there, kid. To meet your demands, I'll have to dig out and disassemble other weapon components, which will undoubtedly increase my workload. I can only guarantee that I'll have one ready for you before the battle begins." He mused about whether this thing would be more useful than the Viking fighter. "I hope you're not just getting your hopes up, kid." Chang Wei paid no mind to Swan's tone and attitude, as that was simply how he was in the game. Moreover, isn't it normal for capable individuals to have a bit of personality? Taking advantage of the remaining time, Chang Wei donned a set of powered armor and trained for several hours, practicing shooting before he began to conserve his energy, waiting for the mission to start. Having learned from a previous experience, he understood the importance of resting well before a mission. Once it began, there would hardly be any time for proper rest. With the countdown to the mission starting, only 5 seconds were left. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. A flash of white light appeared, and Chang Wei's fleet arrived at the moment the story of Titanfall 2 began. Who is calling the fleet? It's me, Rifleman Jack Cooper. Chapter 16. The show begins. Command Center. This is the 9th Fleet. We are under attack over Typhon. Requesting assistance. Port side. IMC forces. We are facing heavy resistance. Mayday, mayday, mayday. This is Vanguard 1. The unit is out of control. Repeat. The unit is out of control. Unable to predict the crash site coordinates. It's on fire. Damn it, I can't see anything. Cabin 5 is suffering severe depressurization. Repeat, Cabin 5 is suffering severe depressurization. Is there any hope? The computer says we're doomed. All personnel abandon ship. Repeat, all personnel abandon ship. Hurry, get to the escape pods. Quick. Buzzing sounds filled the airwaves of the Border Resistance radio channel, accompanied by a tense atmosphere as numerous escape pods descended from low orbit around Typhon, skimming through the atmosphere. Among these escape pods was the protagonist of Titanfall 2, Rifleman Jack Cooper. Chang Wei's vision flickered, and he felt intense pain throughout his body. His heart rate was elevated, and his breathing was rapid. He needed treatment urgently. Before long, he hazily heard the intelligent voice of a nurse from StarCraft 2. Emergency medical system initialization complete. Treatment unit. Fleet Commander, General Chang Wei. ID 00001. Administering 20 milligrams of stimulant and a dose of nanomechanical bugs immediately. In the next moment, Chang Wei felt 2 injections in his neck through the powered armor. His vision began to normalize, and strength gradually returned to his body. His mind was a blur as he stumbled out from the wreckage of the crashed medical transport. What first caught his eye were the scattered fragments of ships around him, along with the lifeless bodies of 50 comrades lying in disarray on the ground. Exposed cables hung loosely, crackling with electricity, igniting nearby fires. The sight of the flames instantly reminded Chong Wei of previous memories. After his fleet had just arrived in this world, they had immediately contacted the Ninth Fleet of the Resistance and formed a coalition to jointly attack Typhon, which was under the control of the IMC. Since the arrival of the Huberian and the assistance of Chong Wei's air force, the IMC has been forced to retreat rapidly and soon lost air superiority over Typhon. Seeing the opportunity ripe, Chong Wei ordered his troops to launch a landing operation. He himself boarded a medical transport aircraft, preparing to conduct a relatively safe ground command under the protection of air superiority and mechanized forces. As a young man full of passion, Chong Wei was eager to experience the thrill of commanding thousands of troops in the Iron Tide. Moreover, this was both a learning opportunity and a test of his courage. Just like General Horace Warfield of the Tyrant Empire, who commanded from the front lines in every battle. However, suddenly seeing a blinding white light outside the window, the medical transport aircraft carrying Chong Wei crashed into a forested valley. System, what is happening? Didn't the IMC already lose air superiority? How was I shot down? The system quickly answered Chong Wei's questions. Due to the host's strong intervention, the original plot was disrupted, and in a desperate move, the IMC activated an experimental relic targeting low Earth orbit and certain planetary airspace. This was a time-space folding weapon, still under research, but it caused temporal disturbances in the area. As a result, the host and the border resistance fleet were forcibly transported 18 hours into the future. Only the recently landed troops managed to escape disaster. In other words, host, you and your fleet have been separated. They will only be able to rescue you after 18 hours. During this time, the host must learn to survive, seek out other allies, and stay alive as long as possible. What the hell? Chong Wei suddenly felt a chill. What did he just hear? You want a rookie machine gunner to survive on this perilous Typhon? Isn't this a joke? He had only held the Gauss rifle for less than 4 hours. Feeling panicked, he hurriedly began to check the bodies of the 50 comrades lying on the ground, hoping at least a few of them might still be alive. However, after checking, he was disappointed. He had to accept the reality that he was the only survivor of the crash. Moreover, he had to survive in the next 18 hours. What should I do? Chong Wei asked the system again. System, am I the only one around? What about my allies? I'm sorry, host. Your crash site is significantly far from the drop zones of other units, and you are deep within the IMC mercenary territory, surrounded by enemies. The situation is grim. However, 30 kilometers to the southwest, there is a group of riflemen from the Resistance, along with a few Titans. They are in a similar situation as you, having also landed far off course, and are currently under siege by the IMC. Among them is Rifleman Jack Cooper. The host may be able to join them, which would increase your chances of survival. System, can't I just hide and honestly endure these 18 hours? As soon as Chong Wei finished speaking, an IMC drone, glowing red, appeared above him to make an announcement. All surviving rebels, you are located in the territory of IMC on the planet Typhon. You are surrounded by us. Do not harbor any illusions. Do not resist stubbornly. Lay down your weapons and surrender immediately. IMC promises to treat all captives well. Chong Wei smiled helplessly. Was there even a choice? He immediately raised his Gauss rifle and fired at the incessantly chattering drone above him, instantly blowing it up in midair. Well, I'm in enemy territory, and besides, this gear I'm wearing ISNT stealth equipment. It's indeed a bit difficult to evade the enemy's sweep and search. In that case, let us go find Jack Cooper. Soon, the powered armor displayed the location and distance of Jack Cooper's landing. At the same time, a broadcast from the rebels was received. Defending the border is a long and arduous task. Fellow rebels and comrades, please respond to this request. Unite. We must end IMC's brutal rule. This is not just for ourselves, but for the future of the entire galaxy. Chong Wei took a deep breath, stepped heavily, turned around, and looked towards the direction where Jack Cooper was located, feeling both timid and excited inside. Come on, the show is about to begin. Click. That was the sound of a bullet being chambered. Note, this is an important step in the protagonist's growth. Because of the protagonist's involvement, the plot changes, leading IMC to use temporal folding weapons prematurely. If the protagonist does not disembark, they would be transported along with the fleet to 18 hours later. Then, Major Anderson would die, and the mission would fail. Moreover, the reason for disembarking is that they have already gained air superiority and landed with the main force. Not just a rash decision. As a young person, the protagonist is inexperienced and wants to learn frontline command and feel the heat of battle. One does not understand without hitting a wall. Please view this rationally. Chapter 17, Trainee Iron Hunter Jack Cooper. In all the battles I have witnessed on the border, Iron Hunters are the top predators. They are agile and quick, graceful yet powerful. With keen observation skills, they make good use of resources and intelligence, and are ruthless. The combat perspective of Iron Hunters is different from the ordinary. Even a hanging wall can become a path for attack. The combat style of Iron Hunters is significantly different from others. They are skilled in deceptive maneuvers and can find ways to win even in dangerous situations. But the biggest difference between Iron Hunters and all riflemen and intelligent machines on the battlefield lies in their relationship with Titans. Once connected to a Titan, Iron Hunters can only be defeated by large armies or other Iron Hunters. Since I became aware, the border has been my only home. For many years, the organization has been forcefully seizing our resources, polluting, and destroying our planet, while slaughtering anyone who dares to resist. Although we have received support from a group of allied rebels, there is still a long way to go before we can completely defeat them. Right now, I am just a rifleman in the resistance, fighting for the freedom of the borders. Although the day I become a pilot is still far off, I hope to earn that title when it comes. My name is Jack Cooper. Jack Cooper is the protagonist of the game. After the 9th Fleet of the Resistance suffered an ambush, he was forced to board an escape pod and crash-landed on a distant planet. As a rifleman, he was given a critical mission and transferred the Titan's authority, becoming the new pilot of BT-7274. He will continue to the mission rendezvous point in enemy territory and make contact with Major Anderson. Along the way, he and BT-7274 developed a deep bond and understanding, overcoming numerous challenges together. Ultimately, the line Protocol 3, Protect the Pilot, has moved countless players and is considered one of the most emotional moments in gaming history. Now, in order to survive the pursuit by the enemy, Chong Wei must find Jack Cooper and hold on to this key figure. He has not forgotten his mission, which includes rescuing Jack Cooper, BT-7274, and Major Anderson. If he waits for 18 hours before acting, Major Anderson will likely be trapped and lifeless by then. Therefore, for his own survival and the mission assigned to him, Chong Wei must seek out Jack Cooper. After some time navigating through the terrain, cautious Chong Wei was eventually spotted by the enemy patrol. As the harsh alarm echoed from the drones above, he knew he was in trouble. He immediately raised his weapon and shot down a few drones, only to hear the shouts of enemy mercenaries echoing from the valley. We've spotted the rebels. They are armed with deadly weapons. Eliminate them immediately. Group 1 and Group 2, flank them from behind and the sides. We will charge from the front and take them out. Let us make sure the rebels perish here today. The dense gunfire rained down immediately. Chong Wei cursed under his breath, rolled to the side, and quickly took cover behind an obstacle. Following the training of professional soldiers, he raised his weapon above his head and began spraying bullets. He didn't aim for precision. He just needed to suppress the enemy's firepower. In a situation with such overwhelming numbers against him, unless he was like the protagonists in movies, where bullets would curve to hit their targets, revealing even half his head to aim would likely result in a fatal shot. Frustrated, Chong Wei found it difficult to lift his head under the enemy's powerful crossfire. While internally, he continued to call for help from the system. But the system kept prompting the host to hold on, saying reinforcements were on the way. How much longer do I have to wait? Even if I'm wearing powered armor, it can't withstand several rounds of concentrated fire, right? Moreover, it seems the enemy is starting to encircle me. Just as Chong Wei finished speaking, his pupils widened as he locked eyes with a mercenary from the opposing side on a cliff nearby. That mercenary was shouldering a weapon similar to an RPG and had already locked onto his position. Damn it! Seeing the fiery object flying towards him, Chong Wei didn't think twice and immediately got up, braving the rain of bullets to sprint away. Then, a deafening explosion erupted behind him, and a powerful shockwave instantly sent him flying through the air. The intense pain made him think one thing. I'm done for. I might be the first system host to be killed by a low-level enemy. When he crashed to the ground and couldn't get up for a while, the anticipated follow-up shots never came. Instead, he heard more intense gunfire and chaotic shouts from behind. 3 o'clock direction. We spotted enemy forces. Quick, run. We're no match for them. Boom. This is Patrol Team 7311. We spotted enemy forces, requesting support. What is happening? Chong Wei struggled to support his body and looked back just in time to see an IMC infantryman being crushed underfoot by a towering Titan. The sight was horrifying. The immense force instantly turned the living human into a puddle of flesh, red and white splattering everywhere. Soon, this IMC patrol team was completely wiped out. Then, the massive Titan approached Chong Wei's fallen form, stomping heavily with the sound of mechanical parts grinding and hydraulic systems working. It knelt down and emitted a synthetic electronic voice. Identity confirmed. Ally Rebel Leader, Major Chong Wei. The cockpit door of the Titan immediately opened, and a man wearing a Titan helmet jumped down quickly, helping Chong Wei up. General, are you okay? I'm Jack Cooper, a trainee pilot from the Resistance. I'm glad I made it in time. Otherwise, we would have lost an important ally. Jack Cooper, huh? Finally, I'm temporarily safe. Chapter 18. Breaking out of encirclement. General, although it seems you are injured, we must act quickly. The IMC has discovered our presence, and they just called for reinforcements. Their infantry and Titans may soon search and encircle this area. We have to leave before they arrive. Chang Wei struggled to stand up, a burning sensation radiating from his back, causing him to wince in pain. Fortunately, he had been injected with a dose of nanomedical robots earlier, which could sustain him for at least 24 hours. So, this injury would be repaired quickly. I'm fine. Jack Cooper, let us get out of here quickly. Jack Cooper nodded, feeling that this general was quite reasonable. He then ordered BT-7274 to carry the injured Chang Wei in one hand and quickly evacuate. As expected, not long after they left, the IMC forces surrounded the area. After a thorough search yielded no results, the IMC commander ordered his troops to conduct a carpet search with this location as the center. This was not only because there was a dangerous rebel pilot and his Titan in their territory, but also because they had intercepted an important message. A transport aircraft carrying a rebel general had crashed in the vicinity. The wreckage of the aircraft had been searched, but the general's body was not found. Orders had been issued from above to capture the general at all costs. If that was not possible, eliminate him. Did everyone understand the orders? Get out there and find him. A fierce-looking middle-aged man with a bushy beard shouted at everyone. Yes, understood. All right, boss. The IMC mercenaries cheered, excited at the prospect of capturing this big fish, and then scattered in all directions. At this moment, Chang Wei and Jack Cooper were navigating through the cliffs, using the dense vegetation and the mountains cover to carefully hide from the IMC while making their way towards the rendezvous point of the rebels. As they passed the wreckage of the rebel ship James McCallan, their communication channel automatically received a broadcast message to the entire army. We must not let the hopes and beliefs left by those fallen soldiers go to waste. We must fight to the end, to end the brutal rule of the IMC. We will never back down. Rebels, remember, you will never fight alone. Jack Cooper was walking in front, with BT behind him, protecting Chang Wei in the middle. Upon hearing the broadcast, Jack Cooper couldn't help but murmur, "Who is the person speaking in this broadcast? I've heard her give motivational speeches to the whole army several times." Chang Wei, who had done quite a bit of research related to Titanfall 2 before coming, was quick to clarify for Jack Cooper. That person is Sarah Briggs, the commander of the Rebel Marauder Corps. She is mainly responsible for commanding the Special Reconnaissance Unit, also known as the SRS. Jack Cooper glanced back at Chang Wei and thanked him. "General, thank you very much for your support. It gives us hope that justice can be recognized. If possible, I hope to escort you to a safe location quickly. However, we are currently surrounded by enemy signal interference, making it difficult to communicate with our allies. So, we can only inconvenience you to move along with me for now." Chang Wei, carrying a Gauss rifle, waved his hand. "It's all right. Our purpose here is to help the rebels defeat the IMC. So, the strategic objective is the top priority. Don't worry about me. Just focus on fulfilling your duties and tasks, Iron Pilot Cooper." The title Iron Pilot Cooper made Jack Cooper's heart swell with pride. The saying goes, everyone carries the flower palanquin, and naturally, Jack Cooper is generous with his praise for Chang Wei. "General, you are quite young. Being able to reach this position at such an age shows that you possess outstanding abilities and courage. Now it is evident that you truly deserve this title." "Ha. You flatter me. You will surely become an excellent pilot in the future." As they moved forward, they remained highly vigilant, causing their nerves to be on edge. At this moment, chatting was the best way to relax, especially with BT-7274's playful banter. The tense atmosphere among the group eased considerably. Suddenly, whoosh, whoosh, buzz, buzz. Something's happening. Quickly conceal yourselves. In the next moment, 3 drones flew overhead. It was clear that these drones were searching for their whereabouts. As they patrolled the sky, they continuously broadcasted messages. "Survivors of the Resistance, listen up. Will you choose to be killed by us? Or become prey for the beasts on Typhon? Or serve us? I believe you know what to choose without me saying much. My patience is limited, and time is running out for you." The words of the organization were filled with nonsense and lacked credibility. Both Chang Wei and Jack Cooper scoffed at them. After the drones left, they held their breath and proceeded cautiously. However, what was meant to come would eventually arrive. When they left the canyon and reached an open area, BT-7274 was spotted by an observant drone due to the lack of cover. This led to a large number of enemy forces beginning to encircle them. Upon detecting the gathering enemy units, BT-7274 quickly made a judgment. Detecting a large number of enemy units, "Pilot, please connect with me to eliminate the enemies together to ensure General Chang Wei's safety." Jack Cooper and Chang Wei exchanged nods, and with a leap, he entered BT's cockpit. The entire movement was smooth and swift, without any hesitation, making it look incredibly cool. Chang Wei couldn't help but feel that his 50-piece power armor suddenly lost its appeal. Protocol 1, connect with the pilot. Connection established. Rifleman Jack Cooper, acting pilot for BT-7274. Protocol 2, uphold the mission. We must escort General Chang Wei. Quickly regroup with the main forces of the resistance, and find Major Anderson to meet up with him. Detecting enemy attack. Protocol 3, protect the pilot. Just as the infantry of the organization spotted BT and opened fire, BT's vortex shield was activated simultaneously. In the next moment, a distorted vortex magnetic field stood in front of the Titan, forming a transparent barrier that absorbed all incoming bullets and explosives, then forcefully flung them back. At the same time, BT's shoulder-mounted rocket pod began to lock onto multiple enemy targets for a devastating bombardment. Wow, this is so incredibly cool. Although I had seen it in the game long ago, the impact of seeing it in reality was unexpectedly strong. Chong Wei was hiding behind the cover, occasionally taking a shot, then giving BT a thumbs up, as BT brought out an electromagnetic rifle resembling a cannon. Just as the battle was heating up, a sharp alarm echoed in the cockpit. Warning, enemy Titans detected. We must break through the encirclement. Please prepare for combat. Boom. A loud noise rang out as an IMC Titan descended from the sky onto a nearby open area, creating a stunning scene of dust and shock. Chapter 19, Allies Rescue. Boom. After the loud noise, as the dust settled, an electronic synthesized voice came from the IMC Titan. Detecting enemy Titan, code name BT-7274. Commencing elimination mission. Without any hesitation. From Chong Wei's perspective, BT and the IMC Titan quickly engaged in battle. First, BT took the initiative, launching a barrage of gunfire and rocket attacks at the enemy Titan. However, the pilot of the enemy Titan, known as Iron Rider, was clearly an experienced veteran. Instead of taking the hits, he swiftly maneuvered to evade, seeking cover while launching a counterattack against BT. This standard operation by the enemy Iron Rider could effectively avoid damage against some inexperienced pilots. Unfortunately for him, he encountered the protagonist of this story, Jack Cooper. Although Jack was just a substitute pilot, he had ranked 6th in the Legion leaderboard during previous training. His instructor, the legendary pilot Captain Lastimosa, was ranked 4th. It's easy to imagine how strong Jack Cooper's skills were. This was also the main reason Captain Lastimosa entrusted the Titan authority of BT-7274 to Jack before his demise. Damn it, are the Rebels Titans all monsters? Ah, boom. Bang bang bang. Amid the intense gunfire and the explosive baptism of rockets, it wasn't too long before Chong Wei saw the IMC Titan being thrown around, desperately evading. Ultimately, with a desperate scream, it was quickly destroyed by BT's 3 shots. Boom. Enemy Titan confirmed destroyed. The initial battle against the enemy Titan was perfect. Iron Rider. Combat efficiency rating has improved. Hearing BT's report, Jack Cooper breathed a sigh of relief, thankful that it wasn't as difficult to deal with as he had imagined. Thanks to Captain Lastimosa's almost obsessive training and guidance. Thinking of this, Jack couldn't help but feel a bit melancholic. Old man, I will not let you down. I will definitely become a legendary pilot. Before he could reminisce for too long, BT's alert sounded again. Warning, a large number of IMC troops are approaching. Protocol 2, hold the mission. We must meet with Major Anderson as soon as possible and escort General Chong Wei to a safe location where the main forces are stationed. Only then can we significantly increase our chances of survival. Jack Cooper nodded in agreement with BT's suggestion, then turned to Chong Wei, who was stepping out from behind the cover. General, this place is not suitable for a prolonged stay. But now, we can only rely on ourselves. We must leave here before the IMC completes the encirclement. Chong Wei was well aware of the dire situation and did not waste any words. He quickly climbed onto BT, leveraging its strength to accelerate their movement. After traveling 15 kilometers, they arrived at a densely vegetated forest. Although they had not encountered any IMC interceptions along the way, they could not afford to let their guard down. BT, the IMC is still searching for our traces. The only way out right now is to rendezvous with Major Anderson, who is 60 kilometers away. I have marked the route, and next, we will be entering a sewage treatment plant. Jack Cooper sighed. 60 kilometers feels like a long distance. Is there no faster way? BT replied earnestly. Based on the current intelligence analysis, this route is already the optimal solution, unless we can contact our aerial transport units. However, whether it was due to signal interference or because the 9th Fleet was not in the orbital space above them, the 197th attempt to make contact yielded no response. Chong Wei, hanging on BT's shoulder, silently listened to their conversation. He knew very well where the 9th Fleet had gone. Both they and his own troops had been transported 18 hours into the future by the IMC's space-time folding weapon. Naturally, there was no way to contact them now. But if they continued to advance on foot in an orderly manner, it would likely lead to a scenario just like in the game's storyline. By the time Chong Wei arrived, Major Anderson would have long since perished. They had to come up with a plan. Losing 1,000 mission points was minor compared to the tragedy of failing to rescue the situation. Just as Chong Wei was about to ask the system for a solution, BT seemed to receive a distress signal from friendly forces. Jack, I have received a distress signal from our allies. A group of insurgents is engaged in a firefight with the IMC alongside our troops. The signal content is as follows. This is Kangaroo 32. We are facing heavy resistance from the IMC together with the insurgents. Many are injured and down. Someone come help. The voice clearly belonged to an insurgent, and the hoarse, urgent shouts indicated that he was calling for help while still fighting. Insurgent forces? Chong Wei exclaimed. Jack Cooper asked Chong Wei, General, it seems our allies are in trouble. However, my priority will be to ensure your safety. Should we continue forward or go to their rescue? Chong Wei's chest began to rise and fall rapidly as he suddenly thought of a possibility and immediately suggested to Jack Cooper, Jack Cooper, let's hurry to their aid. I believe we will soon have an aerial transport unit. Jack Cooper was momentarily stunned, but he didn't say much. Instead, his eyes shone with determination as he replied firmly. Understood, General. We will proceed with the rescue immediately. As he watched BT march with heavy steps and start to run, Chong Wei's lips curled into a mysterious smile. If I remember correctly, the mission of the Hardbone Squad was to carry an inactive transformer in its packaging and provide cover for its combat testing after landing on the ground. And the only key to activate it is the leadership module in my hand. Chapter 20. The situation boom, 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 boom. Accompanied by the rapid sound of mechanical footsteps, Chong Wei and BT were getting closer to the rescue signal. Faintly, they could hear the intense gunfire coming from a distance. I see them under the mountain. Chong Wei pointed in a direction and shouted to Jack Cooper in the cockpit. Jack Cooper, wearing the Iron Driver helmet, had a wider and clearer field of vision than Chong Wei. He had already spotted two friendly Iron Drivers working together with a group of militia clad in power armor, responding to an attack from the IMC. General, the situation is urgent. I'm jumping down. Hold on tight. What the heck? Jumping down from this nearly 90-degree slope? Are you kidding? Chong Wei quickly held on to BT, who then slid down the slope in an exhilarating manner, performing a power slide. The entire process was thrilling, like a roller coaster, almost making Chong Wei's heart leap out of his chest. Before long, with a loud crash, they reached the ground, kicking up a cloud of dust and debris. The moment they landed, the powerful recoil sent Chong Wei flying off BT, just as he was about to hit the ground. A gigantic mechanical arm swiftly reached out and caught him. Chong Wei was nearly scared out of his wits. If he had fallen hard, he would have been in serious trouble. Breathing a sigh of relief, he thanked BT. Thank you, BT. BT replied in a silly manner. You can always count on BT. After carefully placing Chong Wei on the ground, Jack Cooper spoke up from the cockpit. All right, General. You should find cover quickly. BT and I will go support the Allies. Okay, Cooper. Please be careful, Chong Wei said as he picked up his Gauss rifle and ran off to find his buddy. Without pausing, Jack Cooper raised his Titan-specific electromagnetic assault rifle and continued to sprint. Soon, they arrived at the battlefield. As soon as they reached, they saw a friendly Titan hiding behind some cover. Just as it was about to peek out and shoot, an enemy Titan swiftly charged in front of it, skillfully grabbing its gun barrel and lifting it into the air. Rat-tat-tat. After the bullets were all fired, before the friendly Titan could react, the enemy Titan followed up with a few punches that struck the friendly Titan, sending numerous parts flying. The entire machine shook violently, nearly losing its balance. Jack Cooper quickly rushed to help, and a burst of gunfire forced the opponents to temporarily abandon their imminent victory, instead activating a vortex barrier to block the incoming bullets. The allied Titan took the chance to create some distance and then looked towards BT, exclaiming in surprise, "Great, we're saved. It's the Vanguard class Titan BT-7274. The legendary pilot Captain Lastimosa." Sitting in the cockpit, Jack Cooper felt a bit speechless. Just as he was about to announce his identity, BT stopped him. "Pilot, revealing your identity now wouldn't be wise. The title of legendary pilot Captain Lastimosa will greatly boost the morale of our allies. Please continue the fight first." Jack Cooper pouted, secretly vowing to become a legendary pilot one day. With that, he ignored BT's advice, opened the cockpit, and jumped out, ready to perform a barehanded takedown on the battlefield. Meanwhile, Chong Wei found his 50 comrades on the battlefield. They had donned powered armor and become a hard-hitting infantry unit. At that moment, 7 of them were injured, but all had been pulled back to cover by their teammates and were not in life-threatening danger. It turned out that as long as they were not directly hit by weapons like rockets, the powered armor was still quite durable against the IMC. Moreover, as long as they formed a certain scale with their Gauss rifles, their powerful firepower could even put pressure on enemy Titans. Lieutenant Ryaskaga looked at Chong Wei with delight, quickly saluting along with other team members. "General, I never expected to see you here." Chong Wei raised his Gauss rifle and took cover with him, occasionally peeking out to return fire at the IMC while asking, "Yeah, I didn't expect to see you all here either. How's the situation with the troops?" "General, it's bad. 7 brothers are injured. Although they are not dead, they don't have much combat power left, especially John and Leech. One got stepped on by an IMC Titan and was lucky to survive, but his sternum and pelvis are shattered. The other took a hit from a grenade and, well, Let us just say he won't be having any kids. I wonder if the medical bay on the ship has the necessary treatment technology, he chuckled. Still able to joke around. It seems the pressure isn't too high yet. At least the allies and the resistance are holding up well. Together, the IMC's ground forces aren't gaining much advantage. By the way, General, what's the situation now? Why can't we contact the fleet in orbit? Don't we have air superiority? Since they were on the same side, Chong Wei had nothing to hide. The IMC has a type of space-time folding weapon called the Arkansas. We came here to find and destroy it. This weapon is still in the experimental stage, and just before, the IMC used it to conduct an experimental strike on our fleet in orbit, causing us and the Resistance's fleet to be transported 18 hours into the future. Oh no, it's now 14 hours into the future. Currently, our transport aircraft have either been taken away or have crashed in the enemy-occupied area of Typhon due to the influence of the Arkansas. If we can find more scattered troops, especially siege tanks, Goliath-armed robots, and Reaver heavy mechs, it would greatly increase our chances of survival. By the way, what happened to the inactive transformer that you were responsible for transporting? Where is it? At this question from Chong Wei, Lieutenant Rizgako's expression suddenly turned grim. I'm sorry, General, that thing was too heavy, and at that time, the enemy forces were surrounding us. I had to choose to lead everyone to retreat. However, it seems that it was taken away by the enemy since we had a tracking device on it. After we met up with a small group of Titans from the Resistance, we were attacked by the enemy here. Chong Wei frowned but did not blame him. Rizgako's judgment was correct. Holding the position would only lead to total loss. System, where is the transformer? Are there any scattered troops nearby? The system mechanically responded to Chong Wei's question. The transformer has been temporarily transported by the enemy to the wastewater treatment plant. In 30 minutes, a transport aircraft will take it away and return it to the weapon research facility on Typhon. Within a 20-kilometer radius of the host, there are 3 surviving units, including 4 siege tanks, 8 Goliath-armed robots, 12 Reaver heavy mechs, 1 SCV, 2 medics, and 39 riflemen. Chong Wei quickly integrated this information, and his mind began to race. Chapter 21. Entering the wastewater treatment plant, just as Chong Wei was deep in thought, Jack Cooper also began to showcase his prowess. With the cooperation of friendly Titans and BT, he moved swiftly, performing wall runs, slides, and stealth attacks, taking down one enemy rifleman after another. He even used the terrain and BT's distraction to leap onto an enemy Titan, pulling out its battery and successfully delivering a fatal blow to destroy it. His fierce and rapid movements on the battlefield left an indelible impression on countless observers. He was a figure of steel, with a heart like a crystal-clear mirror, moving with the grace of a hidden predator, embodying the spirit of relentless action. He was known as Iron Rain. Captain Lastimosa, well done. Truly a legendary Iron Rain. Ranked 4th in the Legion. With Captain Lastimosa present, the enemy forces were no match for them. It was a crushing victory. Haha. This small-scale battle ended in triumph thanks to everyone's teamwork. The surviving Resistance fighters were all cheering in celebration. Due to Jack Cooper's Iron Rain helmet, his identity code had not yet been changed. Therefore, everyone unanimously believed that the one who came to their rescue was indeed the legendary Iron Rain, Captain Lastimosa. After the battle concluded, Jack Cooper immediately revealed his identity and informed everyone that Captain Lastimosa had already sacrificed himself. After hearing the news, although everyone was surprised and regretful, they expressed more admiration and gratitude towards Jack Cooper. Hey, Jack Cooper, Captain Lastimosa must be feeling comforted in the afterlife, because you have become an excellent pilot. Jack Cooper nodded and said no more. At this moment, Chong Wei also ran over with the hardcore team and spoke up. Jack Cooper, the mission must continue. We've wasted too much time here. According to the intelligence I've received, Major Anderson is in life-threatening danger. If we delay any longer, he won't make it. Jack Cooper was taken aback at first, then his expression immediately turned serious as he asked, General, do you have a good plan? Based on our current distance, we are still 60 kilometers away from Major Anderson. According to BT's calculations, if we rely solely on foot, it will take at least 8 hours. If there are IMC forces pursuing us along the way, we will take even more time. Chong Wei said with a serious expression, we don't have much time left. But the opportunity still exists. We must head to the sewage treatment plant immediately. There is something very important that the IMC has taken from us. It will be key to getting us quickly to Major Anderson. We need to retrieve it, and we need to be fast. Because in half an hour, the IMC will dispatch a transport aircraft to take it away. Given the urgency of the situation, everyone quickly organized the remaining forces and headed towards the sewage treatment plant. As for the injured, 2 Marines were assigned to stay behind and care for them, waiting for rescue. Chong Wei had already contacted the human forces, who would gather at the injured's location, and orders would be given to them later. While advancing, Chong Wei elaborated on the mission objectives. What has been taken from us is a mechanical unit called Transformer, which can mimic and transform into any object through scanning and analysis. In other words, once we successfully activate it, as long as it scans a spaceship, it can transform into a corresponding sized spaceship to take us away. This is what the transformer looks like. Along with its emblem, I've sent it to everyone. We must find it. The last signal location it appeared in is within the sewage treatment plant and should not have moved in a short time. We will search separately and try not to engage too much with the IMC along the way. The mission is our priority. Once found, do not alert the enemy. Inform me immediately, as I have the key to activate it. Does everyone understand? Understood, General. Although Chang Wei was not the commander of the resistance, as an ally, he held the highest rank there, and his goals aligned with those of the resistance, so everyone followed his command. Soon, they arrived at the sewage treatment plant, and after clearing out a small resistance from the IMC, they successfully entered. The interior of the sewage treatment plant was damp and dimly lit, with an unpleasant chemical ion smell in the air, seemingly evaporating from the sewage. The most important thing is that the area is filled with pipelines, and the terrain is intricate. Generally, if someone arrives here without a map, they can easily lose their way. Chang Wei exchanged glances with the others and said helplessly, "It seems it's time to split up and scout." There were no objections, and everyone began to move forward with their respective teams. Due to the powerful combination of Titan and Iron Rider, they were all assigned to separate teams. Even Lieutenant Reese Gakko parted ways with Chang Wei, and before leaving, he assigned his capable aide Riger and a few of his comrades to Chang Wei, instructing them to ensure Chang Wei's safety. "General, be careful. The layout here is complex. Watch out for traps and ambushes. You too, Cooper." Jack Cooper, sitting in BT's cockpit, waved at Chang Wei, then took a quick step forward, one hand wielding the Titan's specialized weapon while the other raised a heavy gate. After the machine quickly crossed over, it vanished from sight in an instant. Chang Wei turned back to see the remaining Riger and the others standing straight, a total of 4, all waiting for his command. Chang Wei nodded to them, raised his Gauss rifle, and smiled slightly. "All right, boys. It's time to move. Remember to kick those guys' butts." "Understood, General." With the sound of power armor taking heavy steps, splashing through puddles echoed around them. Even without the protection of Jack Cooper and BT, Chang Wei felt no fear, because beside him were not just 4 solid brothers, but also Riger, who had a lucky aura around him, a true powerhouse capable of taking on a swarm of enemies. Chapter 22. Target discovered the environment of the sewage treatment plant was indeed complex. As the 5 of them continued to explore, they encountered 3 waves of patrolling infantry. Fortunately, in the narrow corridors and passages, the protective capabilities of their power armor and the penetrating power of their Gauss rifles were greatly utilized. Along with Riger and his hardcore team, who were elite infantry, they easily eliminated all enemies. However, as they pressed on, trouble arose. They encountered a group of robotic units from the opposing faction. These robots had formidable firepower and remarkable defense, charging fearlessly into battle. Even if knocked down, they would crawl back like a T-800 Terminator to retaliate. If they got too close, they would even self-destruct. Chang Wei, having played the game, was well aware of these robots' intel and weaknesses. Thanks to his warnings, the 5 of them managed to avoid casualties. However, according to Chang Wei's understanding, if they continued, they might face agile self-destructing robots known as jump spiders. If they got too close, even in power armor, they could be blown to smithereens. The bulky power armor lacked the super agility and quick movement of Iron Rider. Therefore, Chang Wei and his team needed to be even more cautious and prudent. In response, Chang Wei made new arrangements. While advancing under mutual cover, everyone had to maintain a certain distance to prevent a sudden attack from an enemy sniper that could wipe them out in an instant. As they moved forward, they heard gunfire ahead and immediately rushed over. There was a group of surviving rebels engaged in a firefight with the opposing forces. The rebels, armed with rifles, had already lost many members. The attackers were the robotic forces that Chang Wei had encountered earlier. Without hesitation, when Rue Gu and the others saw Chang Wei's signal, they immediately raised their weapons and opened fire, providing cover support for the group of riflemen among the rebels from a different angle. In the confined space, gunfire erupted, and bullets flew everywhere. The violent spectacle played out relentlessly, claiming the lives of soldiers from both sides. Chang Wei took the opportunity to hone his shooting skills, increasingly finding his rhythm. He had taken down at least 10 enemy riflemen, who were vulnerable and lacked armor. Being hit by a Gauss rifle meant almost certain death. Blood and fire, steel and slaughter. This was the best training for a man. Amidst the flashes of gunfire, Chang Wei gradually shed his youthful innocence and began to mature. Before long, the battle ended, and he met up with the rebel riflemen. "Thank you for your support, Commander," Chang Wei said, looking at one of the leaders. "Can you still move?" The man sighed and pointed to his fallen comrades on the ground. "These people are severely injured. Those who can still breathe. We'll try to move out as best as we can. As for the others, we have to leave them here." Chang Wei lowered his weapon and paid his respects to the fallen soldiers. "Let them rest in peace, soldiers. Sorry, Commander. Chang Wei didn't say much. In fact, he wasn't very good at comforting people. He lifted his head and changed the topic. How did you get here? The man answered seriously. We were tracking an enemy transport team. They were hauling a large container. Although we don't know what it is, intercepting it is definitely worthwhile. Chang Wei raised an eyebrow and began to ask more detailed questions, quickly confirming that the container was the transformers they were looking for. Where did that transport team go? The other man pointed in a direction and continued. They went that way. I heard them say they were going to transport that thing away. We intended to stop them, but we were intercepted by their robotic forces. Commander, if you want to pursue them, you might need to hurry. Their transport aircraft are on the way. Chang Wei thanked him earnestly, then led Rue Gu and the others to quickly follow in the indicated direction. At the same time, he broadcasted on the Allied channel. This is Major General Chang Wei. We have discovered the whereabouts of the transformers. They are being transported by an enemy transport team. They are expected to be heading towards Area C, the control room of the wastewater gate. If anyone is nearby, please intercept immediately. We're on our way. A chorus of affirmative responses echoed through the communication channel, and at that moment, Jack Cooper reported back. General, BT and I are right here in the main control room by the gate. But there are too many jump spiders. We are working hard to clear them out. Boom, boom, boom. Chang Wei could faintly hear the sounds of intense gunfire and explosions from that direction, occasionally accompanied by heavy footsteps and the sound of jetpacks. It seemed the battle over there was fierce. Therefore, Chang Wei immediately added to everyone on the channel, everyone, speed up. Quickly gathered towards the main control room of Zone C. Move. At this moment, another urgent report came from Jack Cooper, his voice mixed with heavy breathing. Report, General. I see the transport team. They have about 20 riflemen and 4 enemy Titans. Additionally, I can hear the roar of a transport aircraft coming from the large ventilation duct above. Upon hearing this, Chang Wei exclaimed that it was bad news and quickly ordered. Cooper, stop them. We cannot let them take the transformers. Understood, General. It seems my combat rating is about to increase. BT chimed in, playfully. Agreed. Jack Cooper has ranked high in previous training, and our compatibility has reached over 90. Without a doubt, he is an excellent pilot. I request to maintain this connection. Protocol 2. Hold the mission. Let's go. BT. Jack Cooper leaped from a height, and at the moment of landing, BT caught him securely and quickly placed him in the cockpit. Then, the full-screen view in the cockpit activated, sounding like an intense and uplifting BGM. As BT took a big step forward, brandishing his submachine gun and charging towards the transport team. BT, let's give it our all. Cooper, you can always trust BT. Chapter 23, Leader Level, Middle School Era. Getting closer. The next corner is the main control room of the wastewater gate. General, there's a sealed security door here, blocking our path. Rue and one of his iron buddies were at the front and immediately reported upon seeing Chang Wei arrive. Chang Wei looked at the heavy door in front of him, suddenly recalling that there indeed seemed to be such a door in the game's level. Once Jack Cooper triggered the opening procedure inside, the entrance would be completely sealed. What to do? How to open it? Chang Wei could vaguely hear the sounds of intense fighting inside, with various firearms and explosions ringing out. Jack Cooper and BT must be in a tough battle. Anxious, Chang Wei rushed to the control panel of the sealed security door, yanked hard, and tore off its protective cover. But when he saw the complex wiring and data panels inside, he was completely dumbfounded, unable to understand anything. Do I really have to do it like in the movies? Shoot a few bullets at the electronic lock and the door just opens? It can't be that simple, can it? That's all scripted. Just when Chang Wei was at a loss, other allies arrived at the scene. Among them, there happened to be someone skilled in hacking. After understanding the current situation, he immediately took out a portable tablet, plugged the data cable into the control panel of the security door, and began to decrypt the system. After a few minutes, the activity inside decreased significantly, causing Chang Wei to worry that Jack Cooper and BT might be in trouble, and he urged the hacker to hurry up. Almost done, General, the soldier said, typing rapidly on the tablet, his eyes fixed on the screen. Soon, he broke through the last firewall, modified the settings, and rebooted the program. Finally, with a dull electronic beep, he completed his task. All right, the door is about to open. Chang Wei immediately raised his Gauss rifle, aiming at the door. The others also took tactical positions, ready to engage the enemy behind the door. With a buzzing sound, the security door flashed yellow and slowly opened. However, the anticipated enemy did not appear. What Chang Wei saw was a group of scattered IMC soldier corpses and 4 Titan wrecks reduced to scrap metal. As for Jack Cooper and BT, they looked completely unharmed, wearing cheerful expressions as they greeted Chang Wei. General, it seems you arrived late. The enemies have all been taken care of by me. Hee hee. Chang Wei was somewhat speechless. He had been quite worried about him. But it turned out he was overthinking it. After all, this was the main character, a formidable individual who single-handedly took down foes on Typhon with his Titan. Did he really need to worry? In the end, It seemed he was just being shown up. Chong Wei quickly led everyone forward and asked Jack Cooper, "Cooper, good job. Where's the mission objective?" BT answered the question, blinking its adorable electronic eyes and pointing towards a corner. Based on the information provided by General Chong, the match with the mission objective has reached 90. It is likely the Transformers in a sealed state. Without wasting any time, Chong Wei ran over, nodding with a smile. "Exactly, that's it. We can leave here on the ship soon." Saying this, Chong Wei used his authority to quickly open the container, revealing a giant metallic robot. 10 meters tall and weighing 23 tons, with a gray-white exterior. Jack Cooper also looked over in surprise. "This thing looks like a robot, possibly a tall titan. General, are you sure there's no mistake? How does it transform?" Chong Wei turned back with a mysterious smile. "Cooper, you'll find out soon." He then carefully pulled out a necklace from his powered armor, which held the leadership module of the Transformers. Chong Wei approached the chest of the Transformers and directly inserted the leadership module. Soon, the gray-white exterior of the Transformers seemed to be activated, beginning to flash with various vibrant colors. A large hole opened up in the chest, revealing a brilliant blue light within, the heart of the Transformers, the source of the spark. The leadership module seemed to be drawn in by the source of ignition, slowly entering. Then, the large hole in its chest closed up, and immediately, a pair of enormous electronic eyes suddenly brightened. Although Chong Wei knew that this Transformer would not harm him, he instinctively took a step back when faced with such a towering figure, maintaining a safe distance. After awakening, the Transformer clearly had not yet gathered its bearings. It first propped up half of its body and sat up. Then, bending its knees, it half knelt on the ground, looking gravely at Chong Wei, producing a mechanical electronic synthesized voice. "I am called Zhong Ertian. Did you awaken me?" "Zhong Ertian? Is that name for real? And what kind of voice package did you load? It sounds a bit like a Japanese anime style." Chong Wei was momentarily taken aback, suddenly recalling that the Transformer IP seemed to have originated from a certain country. But he quickly remembered that the names of the leaders in the Transformers franchise often included the character Tian, such as Yu Tian Di, Qing Tian Zhu, Wei Jin Tian, Tong Tian Xiao, and Jing Pa Tian. Does that mean the Transformer before him, Zhong Ertian, is also a leader-level Transformer? Never mind, I'll deal with that later. Right now, the task is the priority. If I delay, Anderson will really be stuck in the wall. With that thought, Chong Wei stepped forward without any hesitation. "That's right. I am the one who awakened you. I am Major General Chong Wei, your commander. Now please follow my orders and begin scanning the surrounding spacecraft. We need your assistance." Zhong Ertian raised its head and casually replied, "There's no need for that. I happen to have the Viking fighter data template downloaded from Swan in my memory bank. Based on my size, I can completely transform into an elite version of the Hell Angel Viking fighter." Then, as if to validate its words, the originally gray-white surface of Zhong Ertian began to gain color before everyone's astonished eyes. Its entire body transformed, displaying various eye-catching paint schemes, with corresponding weapons mounted on its limbs, and flight wings and engine nozzles sprouting from its back. From a distance, the metallic texture combined with the sci-fi streamlined design was simply imposing, looking incredibly cool. Describing it as a Transformer or Titan was no longer sufficient. This was a Gundam. A Gundam capable of transforming into a Hell Angel. Chong Wei was completely mesmerized, and deep within, a sense of masculine romance began to awaken. Chapter 24, Departure to meet Anderson. Mechas are the romance of men. Chong Wei felt a strong urge to jump right in. However, rescuing Anderson was the priority. "Alright, Zhong Ertian, you've just been born, and your name sounds a bit unusual. From now on, let us just call you Tian Hao. Is that okay?" Tian Hao seemed to quite like this name. "Sure, that sounds good," it replied, with a hint of Japanese pronunciation mixed in. BT, standing nearby, seemed to have found the keyword and raised its hand in a daze. Detected unknown language, possibly from an ancient era, cradle of humanity, Earth. Warning, insufficient data. Unable to analyze successfully. It is speculated that the ethnic group associated with this language may have long been extinct. Jack Cooper glanced at the towering and powerful entity, feeling amazed, while also turning to Chong Wei and asking, "General, what's next? Can we set off now?" Chong Wei nodded, affirming, "Yes, we succeeded. Tian, transform into the Hell Angel. We need you to take us to an IMC research facility 60 kilometers away and meet with Major Anderson there." Tian smiled brightly and nodded. "Alright, leave it to me." Without further ado, it began to transform, producing a series of mechanical sounds. The rapid transformation of countless modules was like magic, leaving everyone present in awe. Before long, a massive Viking fighter jet in the form of the Hell Angel hovered in front of them, spewing flames from its tail. "Incredible. Huh? Does that big hunk of metal need to come too?" Tian asked, puzzled, as it noticed BT approaching. Jack Cooper patiently explained, "BT is my most important combat partner. As its pilot, I can't leave it behind. Chang Wei climbed into the cockpit of Tian Tian and clarified the situation. After some thought, Tian Tian agreed, but made it clear that since it was carrying BT, no other personnel could come aboard, or it wouldn't be able to manage. After all, it was a fighter jet with limited capacity already loaded with weapons and ammunition. Chang Wei found this reasonable and did not press Tian Tian further. However, before leaving, he gave an order to Lieutenant Riscacco of the Hardbone Squad. Lieutenant Riscacco, I am promoting you to Army Major. The remaining scattered troops should have regrouped with the injured. I order you to command the existing forces to search for and gather surviving allies here, then safely bring them back to the main assembly point. Major Riscacco quickly stood at attention and responded firmly, I will ensure the mission is completed, General. Chang Wei nodded and, amid everyone's waves, took off with BT and Jack Cooper aboard the Hell Angel Tian Tian, heading toward Major Anderson. After they left, Major Riscacco shot a glance at Rigo and scolded, Hey, why are you looking at me like that? Trying to work me to death? From now on, you're promoted from sergeant to lieutenant. Huh, I just wanted to ask. Sir, when can our infantry have cool, transforming machines like that? If not, Titans will do. Major Riscacco kicked him in the rear and scolded, What are you dreaming about? You know we're infantry, right? Infantry should focus on infantry work, not daydream about those things. It's already generous enough to provide you with a powered exosuit. Do you want to go back to that almost bare-bones look from when you were part of the Federation? No, sir. If not, then hurry up and tend to the injured, eliminate any remaining dangers, gather intel nearby, and look for usable supplies. Didn't anyone tell you that this is what infantry does? Yes, sir. Rue Good didn't dare to retort, as the aura of his former high school teacher was too strong. Soon, the hardcore troops met up with the assembled mechanized forces. They would be here to save countless surviving comrades. However, when Major Ruajaska learned that there was actually an SCV among the team, he suddenly had a new idea. SCV, give me a command center built right away. The SCV, wearing a flat-brimmed cap, with a full beard and an old cigarette dangling from his mouth, was utterly speechless upon hearing this order. Build a command center in this dump? Is this a joke? But when he saw Ruajaska's sharp gaze and glistening bald head, he decisively gave up on complaining and reluctantly said, The task is tough, huh? All right, I'll get on it. You're in charge. Oh no. Over time. Chapter 25. Time-space loop. A distance of 60 kilometers at daily flying speeds was covered in no time. However, when they arrived, they found it to be a wasteland. Various structures still retained their main frames, but they were overgrown with weeds and in ruins. Some areas had even become nests for beasts on the planet, clearly abandoned for a long time. As Tian Tian flew everyone over this area, he didn't spot any signs of the opposing forces or the resistance. Curiously, he asked, Did we get it wrong? It seems like there's no one here. Zhang Wei, who was aware of the original storyline, remained silent, constantly scanning the area below. BT and Jack Cooper attempted to contact Major Anderson via radio, broadcasting to this region. This is BT 7274, calling Major Anderson. I have arrived at the rendezvous point with Iron Horse, requesting a response. No reply. Repeat, this is BT 7274, calling Major Anderson. I have arrived at the rendezvous point with Iron Horse, requesting a response. Still no answer. Zhang Wei and Jack Cooper's expressions darkened, and a thought flashed through their minds. Could it be? Did we arrive late? Tian Tian, let us down. Perhaps we can find some clues through a closer inspection. After much contemplation, Zhang Wei finally issued the command. All right, we're landing. As the massive Hell Angel descended, the noise and air currents instantly scared away a group of beasts. Before Tian Tian could stabilize, BT leaped down to the ground and began observing the surroundings. Tian Tian then transformed into a stylish mech form. However, Chang Wei did not rush down, but instead sat in the cockpit of Tian Tian, enjoying a unique view akin to that of a mecha pilot. This feeling is quite nice. Just as Chang Wei was reflecting on this, BT completed a survey and reported back. After comparison, the meeting point was confirmed to be accurate. It showed that Major Anderson was located within this facility. But for some unknown reason, we were unable to establish an effective communication connection with him. To improve efficiency, I suggest we investigate separately. Both Chang Wei and Jack Cooper agreed. Thus, he teamed up with BT, while Chang Wei paired with Tian Tian, and they began to act separately. Along the way, many beasts, upon seeing Tian Tian's massive 10-meter height, were frightened and fled like quails, while Chang Wei remained in the cockpit, continuously observing the ground from above. Before long, he discovered a group of rebel corpses. Just as he was about to inform Jack Cooper of this news, he was preempted by Jack's voice. General, did you see that? It seems something peculiar is happening here. I saw some images. It looks like the scenery from before. What is going on? I feel this is not good. BT also detected this phenomenon and began analyzing it. In this area, the space-time distortion phenomenon is extremely severe, with numerous cracks appearing in space-time. Iron Rider, General. Please be aware of your surroundings and proceed with caution. Is it about to start? Chang Wei stroked his chin, as if remembering something. Iron Rider, General. I detect that the space-time distortion phenomenon is intensifying. Please be cautious of terrain changes and all potential dangers. Just as BT's warning finished, Chang Wei and Jack Cooper saw the surrounding environment suddenly change. The previously dilapidated and overgrown buildings instantly transformed, looking brand new. In the distance, countless workers were moving back and forth, and several aircraft were taking off and landing in the sky. Moreover, there was a base announcement continuously urging action, as if witnessing the past events that occurred here. All research personnel, please note, the ARC testing procedure is about to commence. Before the announcement could finish, with a swish, the scenery around them returned to reality. With a serious expression, Jack Cooper asked BT, what exactly is this place? BT mechanically replied, according to the database. The IMC has several scientific research facilities across the borders. However, this particular facility is distinctly different from the others. In the 8 months leading up to Operation Apex, the Rebel 9th Fleet occupied or destroyed over 29 similar facilities. Hearing part of this, Jack interrupted, but in another timeline, this place seems to be intact? BT continued. This is quite interesting. The entire facility is filled with signs of energy explosions. Yet, you are unable to detect the same environmental conditions in another timeline. Oh, so did I just return to the past? Or to the future? Jack Cooper clearly became interested. You returned to the past. Chang Wei answered this question over the communication channel. Then, he called out to BT and Jack Cooper. Come here. I found the bodies of the rebels. Not long after, BT and Jack Cooper arrived at the scene. Jack looked at the bodies on the ground and couldn't help but ask, is this where we find Major Anderson? Chang Wei and Tian remained silent, while BT walked over, glanced at the bodies, and replied, these remains do not match Major Anderson's genetic data. There is still a theoretical possibility he could be alive. I suggest we search the reception hall. Upon hearing this, Chang Wei finally remembered something important in the game's storyline. Major Anderson was not supposed to die. It was because Jack Cooper took the wrist device, traveling back and forth in time, triggering the facility's alarm system, that Major Anderson, who was infiltrating to gather information on the ARC, was discovered by the IMC. Ultimately, during his escape, the wrist device malfunctioned, tragically getting stuck in a wall. This meant that Major Anderson's death was largely due to Jack Cooper's actions. Although this involved a bit of a time paradox, as long as there was a chance, Chang Wei had to prevent this tragedy. He quickly called out to Jack Cooper, wait, Cooper, I know where Major Anderson is right now and what information he's trying to investigate. Listen to me. Do not enter the reception hall, or Major Anderson will die. Because once he entered the reception hall and saw Major Anderson's body, the causal loop of time would close, and the tragedy could not be prevented. Chapter 26. Preparing for action. Wait. Cooper, I know where Major Anderson is right now and what information he's trying to investigate. Listen to me. Do not enter the reception hall, or Major Anderson will die. Jack Cooper looked puzzled and asked, General, what are you talking about? Why will Major Anderson die if I enter the reception hall? Chang Wei thought that Major Anderson should be in another timeline and had not returned yet. Fortunately, there was still time to answer Jack Cooper's confusion. Taking a deep breath, Chang Wei began to explain, 2 weeks ago, Commander Briggs of the Rebel SRS intercepted important information from the IMC. They were preparing for a major operation on Typhon. They detected a massive energy explosion in that area, causing time distortions. Commander Briggs hoped Major Anderson could infiltrate this facility to investigate the incident. The wrist device recovered by the rebels during Operation Grizzly could effectively help Major Anderson maintain stable time travel capabilities. This way, he could return to the past to uncover the truth. However, this wrist device also had a drawback. It could create time paradoxes and causal loops. In simple terms, as long as no one interfered, Major Anderson could rely on his exceptional skills and combat training to complete his mission safely. However, once someone intervenes, it will create a time-space paradox and a causal loop, resulting in the death of Major Anderson. This situation is not alarmist. I can clearly tell you, Cooper, that once you enter the reception hall and see Major Anderson's body, you are destined to take over his mission and continue the intelligence investigation. However, your time travel will trigger the alarm system of this facility, which suddenly exposes Major Anderson to significant risks, ultimately leading to his death during the escape. Then, you discover the body and continue to take over his mission, creating this cyclical causal loop of time and space. Is it really that fantastical? After hearing this, Jack Cooper's face was filled with disbelief. BT affirmed, Iron Rider, General Chang Wei's analysis is not without reason. If Major Anderson indeed possesses a time-traveling device as he claims, then our rash actions could disrupt his plans and greatly increase the likelihood of his life signs disappearing. I suggest we follow General Chang Wei's instructions and observe the situation. Chang Wei glanced at BT and nodded. Exactly. During his stealth operations, Major Anderson will inevitably return to this time-space to avoid patrols and obstacles. We just need to wait and contact him when he returns. Seeing that everyone agreed with this plan, Jack Cooper could only helplessly say, "It seems we have no choice. After all, my mission is to meet with Major Anderson and receive his further orders." After waiting for about 20 minutes, BT's continuous radio calls finally received a response. "This is Major Anderson, BT 7274. I have received your communication signal. However, I am currently executing an important mission and do not have much time for a lengthy conversation. I now order you and your Iron Rider to remain in place and, together with the other assembled troops, maintain vigilance around the area. Once my mission is complete, I will send you further orders." Just as Major Anderson was about to cut off communication, Chang Wei suddenly interjected. "Wait. Major Anderson, your mission has been cancelled. We have obtained the relevant intelligence you were investigating. Please come and meet us immediately." "Huh. Your biological code is the leader of the resistance, General Chang Wei? How do you know the mission has been cancelled? I have not received any termination orders regarding SRS-related tasks. If you falsely report military orders, even if you are our ally, you will pay a heavy price." Upon hearing this, Jack Cooper and BT unconsciously looked at Chang Wei. Chang Wei frowned. In order to gain Major Anderson's trust, he decided to take a risk. "Major Anderson, what you are looking for is actually a type of time-folding weapon controlled by IMC, called the Arkansas. However, the Ark is clearly not their own property. They are still in the research phase. Nevertheless, IMC has decided to use the satellites of Typhon as test targets to accelerate the weaponization research process. This is also the source of the massive energy fluctuations you detected 2 weeks ago. Then, about 10 hours ago, the 9th Fleet and our rebel forces suffered a second experimental attack from the Arkansas. This attack caused our fleet to be transported to more than 10 hours into the future, scattering our landing troops, resulting in crashes. However, the IMC has already relocated the Ark and gathered enough data. The next target for the attack will be Harmony." Upon hearing this news, Major Anderson exclaimed in surprise. "What? Harmony? That's the home planet of our resistance. It's home to over 40 million people. No, I need to quickly inform that old woman Sarah. Wait, I'll be out right away." Before long, an old man, agile and nimble, jumped out from the building within the facility. However, upon seeing the towering figure, he mistakenly thought it was a new type of Titan from the IMC and almost turned to flee. If it weren't for BT being nearby, Major Anderson wouldn't have dared to approach this massive object casually. After a reverse thrust and safely landing, Major Anderson urgently asked Chang Wei how he was aware of this intelligence. Chang Wei confidently replied without a hint of nervousness, "Because that Ark is something we lost, only to be later taken by the IMC." Although Major Anderson remained skeptical, there were more pressing matters to attend to. "Just now, I glanced and saw that the first test on the Ark is about to begin. We must destroy it and trigger an energy explosion at this facility. This is the only way we can create a temporal loop, allowing us to detect the energy explosion fluctuations from 2 weeks ago, thus alerting us. At the same time, to locate the relocated Ark, we need to get closer to the ring and scan its energy signature. However, this is very dangerous, as we must accomplish this feat surrounded by all the IMC guards at this facility. Do you have a different opinion on this, General Chang Wei?" Chang Wei looked back at the towering figure with newfound confidence and smiled. "Of course, there's no problem because we are allies on the same front." ISNT Major Anderson's question also a form of testing Chang Wei? After all, this rebel group has an unclear background, and he wouldn't want to be backstabbed at a critical moment. However, seeing Chang Wei agree so readily reassured Major Anderson. At least it shows that they are not on the same side as the IMC. "All right, once everyone is ready, I will switch the wrist device to transit mode and transmit its beacon simulation signal to you. Then we can return to the past and carry out a major operation in this facility. Remember, we are greatly outnumbered, so do not engage in prolonged battles. Completing the mission is our top priority." Chapter 27. The battle begins. The Viking Fighter, a unit of the Terrans in the game, was developed by Blarifing and the Enlightenment Power Group after learning the lesson of insufficient anti-air capabilities during the Battle of the Mother Hive. It serves as the ultimate air and ground support combat unit for the Terrans. Its transformation ability is largely inspired by the siege tank model, with each Viking equipped with a reactor in the central part to maintain the operation of the entire mech. Additionally, there is a thruster located in the abdomen to ensure stability during the transformation process. During transformation, the location of the cockpit remains unchanged while the limbs, analogous to those of a human, automatically switch to wings. There are also specific fixtures inside the cockpit to handle the significant shaking caused by the transformation. In simple terms, the Viking can function both as an assault mech and transform into a fighter jet with significant advantages in air combat. Although the Viking may not land as effectively as others, its presence fulfills the strategic needs of the Terrans in different combat phases. The Viking is equipped with dual 6-barrel Gatling guns for ground combat, and a large number of Lancelot missiles for engaging aerial targets. Its excellent armor-piercing characteristics are particularly effective against heavily armored capital ships and well-protected fighter jets, although its effectiveness against lightly armored aircraft is somewhat diminished. To address this issue, the Enlightenment Power Group developed the Wavebreaker missile, which contains antimatter in its warhead, capable of releasing numerous subatomic shrapnel upon impact, causing splash damage to surrounding aerial targets. This upgrade, combined with Blarifing's Phobos-class weapon system, makes the Viking a formidable force. However, due to the enormous cost of modifications, only a small number of Vikings can receive these two upgrades. The elite enhanced version of the Hell Angel is among those few. As the Viking can switch between fighter and mech modes, this places high demands on its pilots. Some pilots even lose their lives during training, while many others perish while on missions. The few that remain become the elite among pilots, their names spreading throughout the sector, instilling fear in their enemies. But does this require Chong Wei to operate it personally? Let us not forget, he is a transforming warrior, a mechanical life form from Cybertron. Moreover, he is the leader of the Autobots, with undeniable combat abilities. He could simply climb into the cockpit and watch it wreak havoc. Chong Wei is quite self-aware. He knows that emulating Jack Cooper and Rigo, who can traverse walls and fight through hordes of enemies alone, is just a dream. As a senior commander, his role is to oversee the overall command and strategic judgment. Utilizing the advantage of foresight from the plot information to make reasonable deployments is the key to turning the tide. As for the valiant warriors like Zhao Zilong, who charge in and out of battle 7 times, let those protagonists take on that role. At this moment, everyone has already checked their ammunition and armaments. Under Anderson's guidance, the division of labor was arranged in advance. At that time, I was responsible for scanning the energy characteristics of the Arkansas. Jack Cooper and BT were to take over the experimental control room and hack into the console's data terminal using the Iron Reaper dagger to cause an energy overload in the loop. Considering that you are not frontline combat personnel, General Chong Wei, I don't need you to inflict heavy casualties or block the IMC forces. Just pilot that giant titan and help us divert some of the enemy's attention. Prioritize your safety when necessary. What? Do you look down on me? Chong Wei muttered to himself, but behind him, Tian rebutted. I'm not a titan. I'm way better than a titan. Just wait and see my performance. Although Chong Wei was indeed inexperienced, having my protection made all the difference. Saying that, Tian reached out a giant hand and lifted Chong Wei, who was clad in powered armor and stood 23 meters tall, like a toy. Then he opened up his chest cockpit and carefully placed him inside. Seeing this, Major Anderson said nothing. After all, a 10-meter-tall Titan could easily crush many IMC riflemen just by its size. Moreover, it was clear that the Titan had features of flight wings and engine nozzles. Major Anderson speculated that this giant Titan might possess a system similar to Polaris. It's important to note that bigger Titans are not necessarily better. A massive size can lead to sluggish movements, easily turning them into live targets for enemies. If a flight system were added, it would greatly enhance its mobility. As everyone was ready, Major Anderson didn't hesitate and directly activated the wrist device to begin the final countdown. Prepare for the assault. Countdown. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, with a bang. Amidst the ripples of time and space, Chong Wei and the others instantly traveled back 2 weeks. Time to act. Upon hearing the command, everyone immediately dispersed and rushed towards their respective targets. The sudden appearance of the Resistance's Iron Reaper and Titan within the research base left the staff and patrolling guards utterly confused. What is happening? Oh my god. We are under attack. This must be a special stealth device owned by the Resistance. Sound the alarm. The enemy has entered our base facility. They must be trying to sabotage the experiment. Quick, stop them. A large number of IMC guards began to mobilize, and the Reaper mechs and Stalker combat machines were awakened one by one. A fierce battle awaited Chong Wei and his team. After dispersing, Chong Wei wouldn't just wait for the enemies to come and blow him up. He immediately called out to Tian, please start your performance. In Tian's cockpit, a voice filled with youthful bravado suddenly echoed, leave it to me. The next moment, with a click, the missile bays on both sides of Tian's shoulders suddenly opened. In the cockpit, Chong Wei saw the display screen filled with red circles indicating locked targets, which made his heart race with excitement. Here it comes. A missile barrage. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. As a multitude of missiles launched, they left behind chaotic trails of white vapor. Boom, 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 boom. The sound of explosions echoed continuously, turning the scene into a sea of flames. Chong Wei was mesmerized. He had never seen such dazzling fireworks. It was simply spectacular. Chapter 28. Thrilling and exciting, this wave of missile fire from Tian. although it took out many enemy soldiers and ignited a fierce inferno. Also successfully drew the attention of all enemies due to its imposing figure and exaggerated firepower. More and more enemies began to encircle, including several fearless infiltrator robots and Reaper mechs. These two combat units were unmanned intelligent machines that posed a significant threat to ordinary infantry and could also inflict casualties on Titans. If enough surrounded a Titan, even an outstanding pilot would meet a bitter end. As the leader of the faction, Tian had a strong combat instinct. After being hit by several rapid-fire rockets, it quickly realized the threat posed by these small units and began to maneuver tactically. While dodging, it crushed more than 10 infiltrator robots in its path. At the same time, dual 6-barreled Gatling guns extended from its back. The guns spun rapidly and, with the aid of the targeting system, let out a terrifying roar. Like two sharp fire serpents, they unleashed a frenzied barrage at the pursuing Reaper mechs. Target identified. Clear the area. Defense system activated. Eliminate all unverified units. The cold, emotionless electronic voice echoed, accompanied by the booming of rockets and gunfire, causing the armor on Tian to rattle. Chang Wei in the cockpit also felt a noticeable vibration. The immersive sensation of racing and fighting amidst gunfire and explosions was something he had never experienced before. It was like a dreamlike mecha battlefield. An IMC Ronin close combat Titan seized the opportunity and leapt out from the side to attack. It swung a massive blade, seemingly aiming to sever Tian's leg joints, thereby incapacitating it. However, this move was undoubtedly very risky, as the size and weight difference between the two Titans was significant. If discovered and counterattacked by Tian, the Ronin could very well meet its demise. It's important to note that the Ronin's design differs from other Titans, offering a longer melee range and greater agility. Instead of shooting, they could kill targets more easily with their swords. However, to maintain quick maneuverability and close the distance to their opponents swiftly, the Ronin compromised on armor protection. Its weak armor made it easy to be destroyed by concentrated fire during reckless charges. Therefore, they often carry out lethal attacks under the cover of their companions or through stealthy ambushes. It is clear that the pilot of this rogue Titan is an experienced veteran. After waiting for a long time, he finally got his chance. While the attention of the other party was fully drawn to the death mechs, he charged out directly, delivering a swift and precise strike to the knee joint of the right leg. Crack! A heavy clang of metal resonated, sending a shockwave through the pilot's hands. How could this be possible? His pilot exclaimed. If it were an ordinary Titan armor, such a full-force strike from the alloy blade would surely sever the entire right leg. Yet, the blade was only lodged a few centimeters into the armor? How could this not astonish the pilot? At that moment, Chang Wei also noticed the rogue Titan that had suddenly ambushed them, and his heart skipped a beat. However, when he saw the blade stuck in the leg armor of the other party, he relaxed again. After all, Viking mechs are heavily armored units. Do you think you can sever the right leg with that broken knife? Dream on. Tian quickly reacted, delivering a kick that sent the rogue Titan flying like a toddler. The force was so great that it crashed into a wall, and arcs of electricity flickered, indicating an imminent explosion. Just as the pilot opened the hatch to escape, a flying alloy blade pierced through and pinned him to the cockpit seat. Turning around, he realized that Tian had just pulled a sewing needle from his right leg and, with precise force calculation, had projected it at the rogue Titan. Like a martial arts master, he could kill with a falling flower or a plucked leaf. However, during this attack, the large death mechs took the opportunity to rush up to Tian. They each spewed flames from their engines, leaping 7 or 8 meters high, and began their full-on assault. One death mech even clung to the porthole of Chang Wei's cockpit, relentlessly hammering on the exterior, trying to drag him out from inside. Chang Wei was alarmed and shouted, Tian, quickly stop them. In the next moment, the death mech still pounding on the porthole was caught by Tian's hand and crushed like a toy. Meanwhile, the machine gun on Tian's shoulder roared even louder, sweeping down a large number of enemy units. Then, Tian stepped back slightly and leaped into the sky. The entire mech quickly transformed, producing a series of mechanical sounds. Boom! The engine roared as it spiraled upward, simultaneously shaking off all the death mechs clinging to it. 2 IMC aircraft flying in the sky attempted to intercept Tian. They unleashed the roar of machine guns and missile locks, trying to shoot him down. However, this soulless attack was countered one by Tian through various high-difficulty maneuvers and precise calculations. Finally, a Thomas spin, followed by 2.5 rolls, released a stream of fiery projectiles, taking down the 2 pursuing enemy aircraft. Throughout this, Chang Wei in the cockpit felt the world spinning, nauseous and on the verge of vomiting. The alternating black and red vision nearly made him lose consciousness. Indeed, not everyone can be a pilot. If it weren't for the need to take care of Chang Wei, the pilot would have easily destroyed those 2 enemy aircraft with the machine's performance. Before Chang Wei could lift the visor of his helmet to catch his breath, a violent energy explosion erupted from the ground facilities. The shockwaves surged into the sky, instantly dispersing the massive clouds. Tian was also greatly affected, losing balance and quickly nosediving towards the ground. The overwhelming sensation of weightlessness made Chang Wei feel as if his heart was about to drop out. It was like riding a death-defying roller coaster, causing him to scream uncontrollably. Damn it! No way am I becoming a pilot in this lifetime. Oh, mission accomplished. We need to go? Suddenly, Major Anderson's voice crackled over the radio, and in the next moment, the entire world changed colors. It was the twilight glow of the setting sun. They had returned from the chaotic battlefield to the originally tranquil time and space. Huh, where's General Chang Wei and that giant titan? Major Anderson and Jack Cooper looked around, puzzled. Only BT-7247 noticed a subtle change in the airflow and immediately looked up, pointing to the sky. Warning, General Chang Wei is in free fall. Expected to hit the ground in 5 seconds. What? Everyone immediately turned to look. Just at that critical moment, Tian regained control and balanced the machine, firing a retro thruster just 2 meters above the ground, narrowly avoiding disaster. This was an incredibly thrilling experience, leaving an indelible impression on Chang Wei. Chapter 29, Next Step. Head to the signal tower. Jack Cooper, clad in high-quality gear, showed determination and resolve in his eyes beneath the iron helmet. The massive Titan mech was awe-inspiring. Like an indomitable fortress, Jack Cooper piloted BT with an unstoppable momentum, taking heavy steps that crushed the enemy's defenses. On the battlefield, explosions were deafening. Jack Cooper and Major Anderson pressed forward, engaging in intense close combat and mutual fire with the enemy troops. Their movements were agile and precise, each attack carrying the power of destruction and elegant composure. BT unleashed massive firepower, suppressing the enemy and preventing their forces from mounting a defense. Together with BT, they swiftly navigated through the battlefield littered with rubble and shell casings, continuously searching for key targets. The tense atmosphere permeated the battlefield, and every exchange of fire was a test of life and death. Faced with a large number of enemy troops, they did not retreat but instead charged bravely toward the enemy. Their cooperation was incredibly seamless, and the trust between them significantly enhanced their combat effectiveness. Jack Cooper and Major Anderson were not eager for battle. They tightly grasped the thread of time, clearing the enemy siege while charging towards the Ark and hacking into the laboratory's control console, causing the entire ring facility's energy to overload. The entire fight was filled with thrills and excitement, especially the fierce clashes between the Titan mechs, which were truly breathtaking and blood-pumping. BT was like an indomitable war god, each movement exuding an unstoppable momentum. In the end, Major Anderson successfully scanned the energy signature of the Ark, and Jack Cooper triggered an energy explosion in the ring facility. When the massive explosion resonated across the battlefield, their mission was accomplished. Then, the earlier scene unfolded. Mission accomplished. We should leave. Huh. What about General Chang and that giant titan? Warning. General Chang is in a crash dive, expected to reach the ground in 5 seconds. Just as the situation became critical, Tian performed a roll and transformation, reversing the thrust to land safely. All right, the Ark scan is complete, and the time loop has been successfully closed. As General Chang's intel suggested, the IMC is very likely to use this to deliver a devastating strike on our rebel-held Harmony Star. We must stop this plan. It concerns the lives of 40 million people. First, we need to send this data back to the fleet. After listening to Major Anderson's remarks, General Chang nodded seriously. Indeed, the priority is to re-establish communications with the fleet. However, our fleet has been affected by the Ark and has been transported 18 hours into the future. From the initial calculation, there are still 2 hours left. So, I suggest we take a short break and wait for the fleet to arrive again. Major Anderson clearly disagreed with General Chang's suggestion. As for Jack Cooper, the lowest-ranking officer, he could only follow orders. General, I do not agree with your suggestion. Typhon is a planet controlled by the IMC. If, as you say, both our fleets have been transported 18 hours into the future, then in that time, the IMC can redeploy a powerful armed fleet in low Earth orbit and fully block and suppress our communications and air supremacy. At that point, only a high-powered interstellar signal tower would have a chance to send our intel out. Time is of the essence. We cannot take the risk. General Chang hadn't considered this aspect. Just as Major Anderson pointed out, the enemy could completely redeploy a fleet that would seize air superiority and implement a communications blockade within those 18 hours. If they only reacted then, it would be too late. After all, General Chang was still a young man with little war experience, compared to Major Anderson, who had fought for a lifetime. His perspective on the issue was not as comprehensive. It is precisely because he is aware of his lack of experience that he wishes to command on the front lines like Horace Warfield, continuously accumulating practical command experience. Unexpectedly, despite having secured air superiority and being able to land safely for combat, he suffered an unexpected strike from the IMC's sanctum, which led to the crash of his medical transport and remaining landing forces, putting him in a perilous situation. If it weren't for the system task, he wouldn't have chosen to take risks with Jack Cooper and BT. Instead, he would have stayed with the hard-nosed troops to find a safe location and wait for rescue from the fleet. Given the circumstances, Chong Wei set aside his facade of a false general and humbly asked Major Anderson, "So, Major Anderson, do you have a better plan?" Major Anderson nodded, opened a virtual map, pointed to a location, and replied to everyone, "We must head to the nearby interstellar signal station and occupy it. Then we need to report the current situation to Commander Briggs through this high-power signal tower as soon as possible. Otherwise, the 40 million lives on Harmony will be lost." The three exchanged glances, feeling the faith in each other's eyes and the weight on their shoulders. BT then spoke up, "Protocol 2, we must continue to complete the mission. Trust me, Iron Horse." Tian chimed in, "This is getting more interesting, isn't it? Although we don't know how many enemies are there. It seems we have no choice now." Chong Wei smiled and said, "In that case, let us move out. Let us occupy that signal tower, contact the fleet, and then push forward to find the sanctum and defeat the IMC." In an IMC communication channel, a group of arrogant voices emerged. "Boss, what is going on? Why the rush to gather everyone? Are we about to finish the mission and get a bonus?" Haha. A fierce-looking middle-aged man named Brisk, a top predator among the IMC mercenaries and the leader of this unruly group of ace pilots in the communication channel, replied, "Shut up. Ken, stop taking so much sedative. Otherwise, when the battle starts, don't blame me for not warning you if you end up dead." Ken looked neurotic, his long-term drug use having clearly taken a toll on his mind, making him appear extremely unhinged. "Ha ha ha, those rookie pilots from the Resistance? I've already killed countless of them this time," Brisk sneered. "Your confidence is good, but I just hope your name isn't on the casualty list afterward, idiot." The others burst into laughter. Brisk's tone turned serious as he continued, "Back to the point, we've captured some Resistance prisoners and intercepted important intelligence. There's a Resistance general named Chong Wei who was left behind on Typhon. His fleet is very strong, and we can't handle it easily. Therefore, I need you to capture him to leverage against his fleet." "Alive?" a female iron wielder asked. "Is it just about survival? If someone becomes disabled due to losing limbs, should that be acceptable?" Brisk looked at the woman and replied, "Aish, it's up to you. Just don't kill him." Also, based on the encounters of our troops along the way and the analysis from the Strategic Intelligence Department, it's speculated that the general's small force may head towards that interstellar signal station. You need to lead your troops there immediately to set up an ambush and bring him back. "Understood, boss." The 5 top hunters replied in the channel, all displaying cold and cruel smiles. Chapter 30. The imminent crisis. After a period of flight, Tian brought everyone to a high-altitude valley. In this valley stood an interstellar signal tower, which was their target, since they were unsure how many guards were present in the IMC's troop deployment. Chong Wei and the others chose to proceed on foot to avoid alerting the enemy. They would carry out their assault once they had a clear understanding of the situation. As they carefully crossed the narrow path of the valley, the scenery suddenly opened up before them. Especially a towering antenna building in the distance made them realize their heavy responsibility and daunting mission. "We must report the current situation to Commander Briggs as soon as possible. Iron Wielder, the signal tower is ahead. We need to pick up the pace." BT 7274 stood on a high slope with a good view, pointing at the distant signal tower and emphasizing their current mission objective. "Protocol 2, continue to hold the mission." After saying this, BT 7274 jumped down the slope and walked alongside Tian. It continued to say to the others behind, "Please follow us closely. Our armor, firepower, and size will provide you with cover." Jack Cooper smiled and quickened his pace, jokingly saying, "BT, your words really bring a sense of security." BT replied, "Incorrect. Language cannot form effective protection. That does not comply with the laws of physics." No, I mean, hey, forget it. You probably wouldn't understand." As they approached the end of the valley path, BT and Tian, who were scouting ahead, stopped. BT also issued a warning. "Warning. A large number of unknown targets detected nearby." Did that group from the IMC catch our scent? Very likely. They are fully capable of determining our course of action and mission objectives through the encounters of small forces. Iron Wielder, Major, General, please remain vigilant at all times. Just after BT finished speaking, it signaled everyone behind to stop moving while it hid behind a mountain and cautiously peeked ahead. "Careful, enemy targets detected." A large number of infiltrator robots are attacking the control room of the signal tower. "Attacking? Are there rebels in the control room?" In the next moment, BT answered Jack Cooper's question with action. It drew its Titan weapon from its back and charged out with great strides, saying to the others, "Follow me." It has been confirmed that there are remnants of rebel forces in the control room, requesting immediate rescue. Jack Cooper, Major Anderson, and Chong Wei exchanged glances and nodded in agreement, then made a collective decision. Charge in. Rescue our allies. Wait. Chong Wei quickly stopped everyone, as he was familiar with the situation and knew about the anomalies in the area. Seeing the puzzled expressions on their faces, he immediately began to explain. Pay attention. There is a thick fog on the ground ahead, which is composed of highly toxic chemicals. If we rush in recklessly, we risk death. I suggest we take BT and Tian to get through. Major Anderson confirmed this with a quick scan using his helmet. The group soon acted on Chong Wei's advice and continued their mission. Confirm boarding. Transfer control of the Titan to Iron Horse. With the rumbling footsteps of BT and Tian, the two steel behemoths began to charge forward rapidly. They could see a fierce battle erupting in front of a building beyond the fog, and their urgency increased. Iron Horse. The remnants of the rebel forces in the control room are in danger, and we are trying to establish communication with them. Hello? This is our ally. Are there any survivors? Tian called out in a dramatic tone on the channel while targeting the infiltrator robots outside the control room with its machine gun. BT was also busy, raising its Titan weapon to attack the IMC forces. As they reached the door of the control room, their figures became visible without the interference of the toxic fog, allowing the remaining rebels inside to see them clearly. Hey, thank goodness. It's our Iron Horse and Titan. We're saved. Hello? Can you hear me? This is Captain Cole from the 3rd Battalion of the Rebel Forces. We are under heavy suppression from IMC infiltrator robots. Requesting support. After BT crushed an infiltrator robot, it directly suggested, Iron Horse, I recommend eliminating all enemy units to establish direct contact with the rebel forces. Oh, it's time to exterminate cockroaches. Tian and BT began to leverage their size advantage to crush the IMC infiltrator robots with absolute force. It was as simple as squashing cockroaches. Before long, the attacking IMC forces outside the door were swept away, and the threat was eliminated. Then, Major Anderson, sitting in the cockpit of Tian with Chong Wei, started calling out to the rebels inside the facility. This is Major Anderson, calling the rebel forces. All enemy troops have been eliminated. Please open the door. Captain Cole quickly responded from inside. We owe you our lives. Those infiltrators were like madmen. I thought we would die here today. The blast door is opening now. Come in quickly. With a hiss, the door to the control room opened. Seeing this, Jack Cooper couldn't help but exclaim, Hey, it feels good. It's like coming home. BT replied, Negative. This is not your home. Jack Cooper chuckled. No, BT. A place with acquaintances is home. Home. Unconsciously influenced by Jack Cooper, BT began to gradually develop human emotions that did not belong to it. The bait has been set. Leaving that group of remaining rebels to serve as bait was indeed the right choice. Hee. Then let's make our entrance. Let's take them down in one fell swoop. Haha. Great. We can start the slaughter again. Just watch me shove the barrel into that Vanguard-class Titan's cockpit and turn it into scrap metal. Don't forget the boss's orders, boys. That general. We need to leave him alive. Got it. Stop rambling. I'll be careful when we go in. Clearly, a crisis is about to unfold. Chapter 31. The top hunter appears. Captain, how is the signal station? Chong Wei asked knowingly. Lieutenant Cole shook his head helplessly and sighed as he reported, Sigh. We just took this place not long ago, but we found that the control panel's power is currently not working, and we can't control it. We need this broken thing to restart it. The one I have here is just broken. Saying this, Lieutenant Cole took out a discarded item and handed it to BT for scanning. BT's electronic eye blinked adorably and quickly scanned and analyzed the result. Name confirmed. ARC device. Function. Can generate up to 5 megajoules of energy. Can be used to power related equipment. Lieutenant Cole seemed to have anticipated this and waved his hand, saying, Yes. You don't need to repeat it. I know already. Major Anderson looked at him with a serious expression and continued to ask, Can you fix it, Lieutenant? We have very important intelligence and need to contact the fleet immediately. Lieutenant Cole shook his head helplessly again and shrugged, replying, If I could fix it, I would have done it already, but the good news is there's a backup in the facility. However, getting there is practically playing with fire. That place is worse than the IMC. So, we need to retrieve the ARC device to restart the power? Lieutenant Cole glanced at Jack Cooper, who had spoken, and nodded. Exactly. Only you Iron Titans can handle this. Ha. It seems this is a default order for us to run errands. Huh? You really know how to delegate. What can we do? We're just riflemen without any jet equipment. We'd just be going to our deaths. Jack Cooper chuckled, seemingly wanting to take on the task. But Major Anderson stopped him, saying, This is serious. I'm not too comfortable leaving this to the proxy Iron Titans. Let me, an old soldier, handle it. Jack Cooper. You and BT stay here. General Chong Wei, you and your giant Titan rest here for a while. I'll be back soon. Chong Wei and Jack Cooper had no objections and waved their hands. May you return safely, Major. We can't afford to lose anyone else. Don't worry. Since I became an Iron Titan, I've never let anyone down. With this statement, Major Anderson quickened his pace and ran towards the depths of the facility without looking back. Seeing this, Chong Wei patted Jack Cooper on the shoulder and comforted him. Cooper, you will definitely become a legendary pilot in the future. Don't rush. Time will prove everything. Jack Cooper chuckled, thinking it was just a joke, but he felt happy inside. Just then, a dull rumble suddenly echoed from outside the control room door. 1, 2, 3, and then more followed. Everyone looked towards the observation window and found that the newcomers were the Titan forces. Soon, a sharp cry echoed through the Allied communication channel. Enemy attack. It's the Titan forces. Number? At least 20 units. Hurry, everyone take defensive positions. The enemy is about to strike. BT and Tion immediately reacted. They had to go out and fight, or being trapped in this small space would only lead to a dead end. Jack Cooper and Chong Wei understood the current situation and wasted no time. They quickly boarded their respective mechs, grabbed their weapons, and rushed out. As soon as the door opened, the distant cannons and rockets began to fire. Tion was quick and pushed BT aside, using his heavy armor to shield him from the fierce attack. Then, the two mechs, along with the defensive forces, began to counterattack. Tion's twin 6-barrel cannons continuously spat fire, while missiles from the shoulder launcher flew into the air. For a moment, both sides were evenly matched in firepower, exchanging shots back and forth. However, soon, 5 specially modified Titans descended from the sky, trailing their afterburners. As soon as they landed, they kicked up clouds of dust, creating an intense pressure on the battlefield. These were the ace pilots of the Titan forces. They were top-tier hunters among mercenaries, and countless rebels had perished at their hands. They were Flamekin, Ronin Ash, Power Richter, Polaris Viper, Ion Sloan. Haha, little rebels. Come out and die. Chapter 32. Top Hunter. Ares Top Hunter is a mercenary organization. Their leader is named Cuban Blisk, and they are composed of a group of elite pilot mercenaries. They do not care about moral standards. They work for the highest bidding employer and will do anything required for the money. After the Battle of Ceres, they signed a new contract with Ares to ensure the safety of the Ark, a space-time folding weapon. They are also responsible for the security of Typhon. They are a mix of bloodthirsty mercenaries, and as long as the price is right, they can generally solve most problems for their employers, making them highly favored by their employer. With General Martyr's authorization, these top hunters were granted the power to command and deploy the forces, inflicting heavy damage on the enemy during the rebels' attack on Typhon. In the previous battle, the front iron pilot BT-7274, Captain Lastimosa, was killed by the Special Titan controlled by Ash. This demonstrates just how powerful they are, far beyond the capabilities of ordinary pilots. So when they descended from the sky in a grand entrance, Chong Wei, who was familiar with their intel, widened his eyes in disbelief, exclaiming, "Impossible. How could this happen? Has the storyline shifted so dramatically? Have the bosses finally wised up? Instead of lining up to meet their demise one by one, they are now clustering together to fight?" Soon, information about the opponents rapidly flashed through Chong Wei's mind. No king here. Kane, belonging to a top-tier hunting organization under Brisk, is a mercenary and a notorious one-eyed drug dealer with unstable mental health and a paranoid, frenzied personality. He treats both enemies and allies with the same ruthless attitude. He lacks the noble elegance of knightly duels, the epic drama of Valkyries, and the heroic spirit of turning the tide. Kane's sole purpose is to satisfy his pathological desire for slaughter. In the game, Kane pilots a customized Flame Titan, capable of 3-stage dashes that allow for aggressive close to mid-range bursts of damage with impressive output. It features sustained AoE attacks and a piercing fire shield that can inflict significant damage on players, but its mobility is severely lacking, making it vulnerable to being kite at longer ranges. Additionally, its grenade launcher has only one shot and suffers from slow projectile speed. In short, it's a short-range fighter. As long as one avoids being hit by the core fire, it can be dealt with easily. Edge Dancer. Ash, also part of the top-tier hunting organization under Brisk, is a mercenary. Before arriving at Typhon, she was hired by a mercenary organization to steal laboratory data and infiltrated as a scientist to initiate an operation, but was subsequently assassinated. However, she did not completely die. With just a breath left, Ash lay in the mercenary's laboratory, and in her final moments, she transferred her consciousness into a robotic body, surviving in an unconventional way. Later, she was recruited by Brisk to join Apex. In the game, she pilots a customized Ronin Titan. Due to being a robot, she can perform exaggerated attack movements that many flesh and blood beings cannot achieve, making her comparable to a melee blade dancer. Wasteland Hunter. Richter is a mixed-race orphan who learned to survive alone at a young age. He possesses various traits of a forest hunter, such as collecting the spoils of his hunts and talking to himself during the hunting process. He is patient, cautious, skilled in tracking and combat. Even in defeat, he chooses to self-destruct, inflicting final damage on his enemies. He truly embodies the essence of a hunter. In the game, he pilots a customized powerful Titan. The downside of the semi-automatic 40mm weapon is that it may experience continuous misses, lacking explosive output, and overly relying on the performance of tracking missiles, which can easily be evaded by cover. The speed advantage of a lightweight chassis can be utilized for close-range attacks. Sky Dominator, Viper, one of the top hunters and a strong individualist, is quite capable himself. This guy is strong. However, he is very arrogant and often prefers to engage in nightly duels with enemies when he has the upper hand. Ultimately, in the storyline of the original game, he is defeated by Jack Cooper and BT. Viper's Titan is a modified version of the North Star, boasting powerful firepower and flight capabilities. The downside is its low armor and lack of defensive measures. Iron-blooded Rose, Sloan, compared to the previous 4 extraordinary individuals, is a pure mercenary driven by money, coming to Typhon simply for the commission of this job. There isn't much information about Sloan, only that she pilots an Ion Titan, with balanced attributes across the board and no obvious weaknesses. These details flashed through Chong Wei's mind, leading him to realize one thing. The opposing team couldn't possibly be here just to individually stop or eliminate Jack Cooper, especially not with 5 top hunters involved. They must have other objectives. What could it be? What could cause such a significant change in the original storyline? In the next moment, as if he thought of something, Chong Wei's pupils changed, and he exclaimed, "They are here for me. They want to capture me or eliminate me." Just as Chong Wei's heart trembled, the opposing side began to join the battlefield. Suddenly, explosions erupted, and bullets filled the air. At the same time, a very arrogant shout came through the public channel. "Which one is General Chong Wei? Come out. No need to hide. You have no way out." Boom, boom, boom. The shockwave from the explosions shook Chong Wei in the cockpit, causing chaos and violent shaking. The sound of destruction was incessant. Due to its massive size, Tian had now become the focus of enemy fire. If it weren't for being a heavy armored unit, it might have been blown up by the fierce firepower long ago. Fight on. Tian. Go for it. Eliminate them. Tian was also fired up and immediately transformed into leader combat form. The 2 wings behind it transformed, one into a heavy armor shield and the other into a colossal sword inscribed with runes. In that moment, it unleashed a roar filled with anger and a touch of youthful bravado. Are you ready to meet your demise? Chapter 33. In a dangerous situation, Jack Cooper. Cover me and Tian. We're going in. Although Jack Cooper and BT were currently being suppressed by IMC's firepower and were in a dire situation, dodging and weaving, they still responded resolutely to Chong Wei's trusting call. "Don't worry. Leave the rear to us." As soon as Jack Cooper finished speaking, an enemy Titan suddenly accelerated and charged at him, engaging in a fierce battle. Sparks flew as they clashed, and the sound of mechanical hydraulics creaked ominously. Chong Wei had no time to support Jack Cooper. He believed in the protagonist's strength. How could he possibly be defeated by these insignificant foes? At that moment, the enemy's Titan forces coordinated seamlessly, launching attacks like a relentless tide. Despite showing extraordinary strength under their onslaught, he still felt immense pressure and danger lurking everywhere. He struggled to fend off the enemy's attacks, but his body was already covered in wounds. If it weren't for the enhancement from the leadership module, his energy source might have already been nearing exhaustion. Chong Wei understood the principle that a prolonged defense would inevitably lead to failure. They had to seize the moment while they still had the capacity to resist and fight back. Otherwise, the further they went, the fewer opportunities they would have. Tian, don't hold back. Launch all remaining missiles. Once we suppress their firepower, we charge in. Tian immediately obeyed Chong Wei's command, and then opened all of its missile launch bays, unleashing a barrage of missiles at the enemy. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. As the rain of missiles approached, all the IMC Titans engaged in fire suppression immediately halted, raising various types of shields while seeking cover. In an instant, many vortex shields, hellfire shields, particle barriers, and fortress gun shields lit up among the enemy ranks. Although this wave of attack did not cause significant casualties, it did slow their fire suppression. Now's the time. Charge! Chong Wei shouted, quickly directing Tian to raise its shield and sword and rush forward. The brutal atmosphere of war instantly enveloped the ruins, which had just been bombarded by missiles. Dust swirled, accompanied by the thunderous sounds of footsteps as the enormous Titan mechs clashed directly with the transforming warriors in a breathtaking showdown. Standing at 10 meters tall, Tian charged into the enemy ranks, wielding an incredibly sturdy alloy shield and a gleaming, rune-inscribed greatsword. With a swift strike, it cleaved the nearest Titan in half before delivering a powerful shield bash that sent another Titan flying. One Titan attempted a sneak attack from behind, but Tian nimbly spun around, dodging the attack while simultaneously kicking it to the ground, followed by plunging a sword into the Titan's cockpit. Zap boom. The electric sparks danced, and the explosion illuminated the surroundings. The entire sequence of movements was fluid and precise, showcasing Tian's strength and confidence. Although ordinary Titans were not as tall as Tian, standing at least 7 to 8 meters high, they were being completely overpowered as if an adult were defeating kindergarten children. This was largely due to Tian's lineage as the leader of the transforming warriors, granting it innate superior combat skills and strength. At the same time, its internal leadership module continuously provides it with powerful energy, allowing it to fight tirelessly on the battlefield. Seeing the overwhelming dominance of its opponent, the 5 top hunters could no longer sit idly by. They quickly maneuvered their Titans to encircle the opponent. Sensing the approaching danger, the opponent immediately took heavy steps forward, raising its shield high, ready to face the enemy's attack. In the next moment, fierce attacks followed one after another. As each of the 5 top hunters unleashed their ultimate skills, instantly, flames, electric arcs, and a rain of projectiles intertwined in the air, creating a dazzling and perilous battlefield. Their firepower was dense and fierce, with each bombardment carrying devastating force, tearing the ground into deep ravines. Yet, the opponent remained steady as a mountain, wielding its shield and giant sword to deflect countless attacks, seemingly unbreakable. As the fiery hunter and the rogue approached, the opponent swung its giant sword directly. The fierce sword light sliced through the air, colliding with the rogue's weapon, producing a deafening clash. The shield blocked the fierce shots coming from the fiery hunter. In just a few dozen seconds, the battle had already exchanged hands over 10 times. Amidst the clash of gold, countless sparks of metal collided and flashed. It was simply thrilling. However, as the battle progressed, the opponent gradually began to feel the pressure of the encirclement. The top hunters in the game were like boss-level entities. Their Titan matches, even without significant teamwork, could keenly find the opponent's weaknesses and flaws under continuous assault, launching one fierce attack after another. The enormous explosions were deafening, with flames and light intertwining in a dazzling display. The atmosphere was charged, and smoke filled the air. These armored giants shimmered with metallic brilliance, their giant swords slicing through the air with a thunderous blade sound. Each strike stirred up a storm, causing the ground to tremble under their power. Their shields became indestructible barriers, absorbing countless attacks. The opponent's body began to show cracks, yet it continued to resist fiercely. Determination and resilience shone in its mechanical eyes, as if proclaiming its resolve as a leader. However, the situation became increasingly critical. With missiles and cannon ammo running low, the opponent could now only rely on its shield and sword to engage in close combat. In a moment of inattention, an aluminum thermite projectile was launched, hitting the opponent directly. Following that, amidst the mad laughter of the fiery hunter, its flame core activated. Instantly, the shockwave from the thermite engulfed the entire mech. The raging heat wave obscured the opponent's vision, forcing it to continuously wield its shield and sword for defense, trying to prevent the enemy from getting close. Yet, the top hunters were unwilling to miss such a great opportunity. The venomous serpent soared into the sky, relentlessly firing plasma railgun shots at the opponent. The powerful Richet, with its 40mm tracking cannon, continued to spew flames. Ash, the Ronin, activated the sword core and executed a phased dash, swiftly attacking Tian. At the same time, Ion Sloan seized the opportunity, activating the laser core and firing a precise laser cannon shot that pierced through Tian's cockpit. With no weapon supplies left, Tian had no choice but to engage in close combat, ultimately collapsing under the relentless assault and heavy blows from several top-notch hunters, each resembling a boss. Inside the cockpit, Chong Wei found himself in a dire situation. His entire right arm had been melted by the previous laser shot, and half of his face was scorched. If it weren't for Tian's slight evasive maneuver, he would have been finished. Jack Cooper witnessed the situation unfold. Although he wanted to provide assistance, he was also surrounded by 7 or 8 Titans, unable to spare any attention. Chong Wei lay in the cockpit seat, breathing heavily, his chest rising and falling violently, the intense pain rendering him nearly speechless. The shattered and cracked display screen emitted Tian's voice of apology. "I'm sorry, I've done my best." At that moment, Ash stepped in front of Tian's cockpit and looked inside at Chong Wei. He discovered the mission target, with a compatibility of 100. "However, Sloan, you were too ruthless. You almost killed him just now." A calm response came through the communication. "Stop dawdling. Hurry up and take him away. The boss is still waiting." Ash snorted coldly. Then pried open Tian's cockpit window, preparing to maneuver the Titan and pull Chong Wei out. Just as Chong Wei was on the brink of danger, an explosion suddenly erupted. With a loud bang, Ash's Ronin Titan was violently thrown away by a shot that came from an unknown source. What is going on? Everyone turned to see a massive object slowly flying over the distant horizon. It was the command center of the human faction from StarCraft. And atop the command center, for siege tanks were mounted. Chapter 34. Reinforcements arrive. Rhaegar had intended to lead everyone to rendezvous with Chong Wei, but just as they were about to arrive, the command center system received a signal indicating that Chong Wei and Tian Tian were in danger. This was serious. Immediately, the radar was activated, revealing the scene of Tian Tian being besieged by enemy titans. Without hesitation, Rhaegar ordered the 4 siege tanks mounted on the command center to enter siege mode. What? Speak up. What do you want to flatten? Where's the target? Once the siege tanks activated siege mode, they gained the farthest attack range of the ground forces from the StarCraft human faction. Combined with radar scanning guidance and the precise strikes of the 180mm Jindong Wapao, they could provide fire support to Chong Wei from such a distance. As the fixed supports of the siege tanks unfolded and pressed firmly to the ground, their cannon barrels aimed at the enemy. At that moment, confident shouts erupted from the drivers of the siege tanks. Fire roaring. Flatten the seas. Bombardment begins. Crush them to bits. Buzz. Boom, boom, boom. On the other side, Aish just reached out to operate the Titan, intending to drag Chong Wei out of the cockpit. However, he was suddenly blown away by a shock cannon's blast. Following that, the Titan forces faced precise fire coverage from an extremely long distance. In an instant, the entire battlefield was thrown into chaos, with explosions lighting up the scene. Many Titans from the opposing side were taken out before they even had a chance to react, reduced to fragments by the shock cannon's immense power. It was already evident that several Titans had their limbs blown into the air, with parts raining down like raindrops, clearly having lost most of their combat capability. After enduring the barrage, the personnel quickly raised various shields. But soon, the second, third, and fourth waves of bombardment followed in quick succession. The shock cannon in siege mode was not only characterized by its long range, great power, and precision, but also had strong splash and shock effects. Unless they could deploy all-around shields like the Protoss forces, they would inevitably suffer varying degrees of casualties. What kind of firepower is this? Orbital bombardment? Is an enemy fleet approaching? Sloane looked gravely at the massive object flying in from the distant horizon. Due to the long distance, she couldn't clearly see what it was and could only deduce from its enormous size that it might be a type of warship. Viper, hiding behind a cover, turned back with an eager tone, saying, "Let me go. I should be able to take it down without any problem." Sloane, also taking cover, shook her head and replied, "It's impossible for the enemy to send only one warship. The follow-up troops will likely arrive soon. We can't afford to linger, or we'll be surrounded." Sloane then shouted into the channel, "Aish, are you dead? If not, get up quickly and take the target with you. We need to retreat." Aish's body was a robot, and the Ronin Titan he piloted was a modified version. Although he had just taken a direct hit from the shock cannon, causing the cockpit shell to shatter, he himself was not mortally wounded. Aish was extremely angry and found the broken cockpit shell to be a nuisance. So he kicked it away. "Got it. I'll pull that guy out right away. Damn it. I will definitely make this general suffer." Aish believed that capturing General Chong Wei would make the enemy cautious. With that in mind, Aish maneuvered the Ronin Titan to roll and swiftly charged towards the fallen mech. "Come out, little bug." As the enemy's mechanical hand reached for him, Chong Wei suddenly opened his eyes wide and raised his right hand to grab the incoming hand, refusing to let it advance further. At the same time, his unique voice called out for the weakened Chong Wei, "Run, Chong Wei." Chong Wei's powered armor was a custom version for generals, equipped with many life-saving agents. During that brief period, painkillers, adrenaline, nanomedical worms, and stimulants had all been injected into his body. This also gave him, who had lost his right arm and had half of his face burned, a sudden surge of strength when he heard the shouts. He gritted his teeth and quickly crawled out of the cockpit. Then, the ion tail flames behind the powered armor erupted, propelling his body rapidly towards the door of the signal tower control room. "Quick! Open the door and let General Chong Wei in." "Oh my god! He is severely injured. He has lost his entire right arm." Lieutenant Cole shouted to his companions, preparing to open the door to assist Chong Wei. Aish was furious to see the target running right under his nose and wanted to chase after him. However, he was forcibly dragged back by the damaged Tian Tian, who refused to let go. "You will die?" Aish, in a fit of rage, stepped on Tian Tian's face and drew out a sharp blade, intending to finish him off with one strike. Just then, Jack Cooper and BT, having dealt with all the enemies, charged in fiercely from the side and knocked Aish away. In the midst of their clash, two sharp blades collided, creating intense sparks, like two noble knights engaged in a fierce struggle. Over the public channel, Jack Cooper shouted at Aish, "You're the one who killed Lieutenant Rustamosha?" Aish, skilled and quick to stabilize his Titan's balance, looked over. "Oh, a Vanguard-class Titan? BT-7274? Ha ha, I remember now. You're that little bug I took down. What? You? The successor, want to avenge him? Jack Cooper's gaze suddenly sharpened, and his tone grew cold. I will avenge that old man. I'm here to kill you now. Ha ha. You're so full of yourself. Just you? The two titans immediately began a fierce battle amidst the surrounding artillery fire. Their blades and ammunition intertwined in a brutal struggle. However, the protagonist is indeed the protagonist, fueled by hatred and adrenaline. It wasn't long before Jack Cooper defeated Aish, when his titan fell powerless to the ground. BT executed a close-range dash and drove the alloy greatsword into its cockpit. At that moment, Jack Cooper shouted, "Die!" With a loud explosion, Aish, one of the top hunters, fell. Old man, I avenged you. The memories of Lieutenant Rustamosha flashed in Jack Cooper's mind, leaving him with mixed emotions.